capitalism. All of the gains in automation, it goes to the owner class. All you have to do is have everyone be an owner, and now suddenly any gain in automation is a gain for everybody. If you grow just one thing, it may not grow as well as if it grows with another thing. A good example of that is called the Three Sisters method of farming.
There is definitely multi-apartment buildings or multi-families that do passive design.
$100 million that they gave to Joe Rogan that they would kind of be out if they breach contract. Is that a bigger number? Or is 2 billion a bigger number?
I don't know, Zach.
It's a tough one. I know.
Really hard.
And maybe comparing numbers is not Jeremy's strong suit. Gotta go kill a Jenny.
I still don't think you should kill her. I don't think it's a good idea.
It's a ghost, dude. Welcome back, everybody, to Bread Theory. So tonight we're going to be continuing on in our short essay series. Last week was Mao Zedong's combat liberalism. So now we're switching back over to the anarchist side, and we are going to look at The Child and Its Enemies by Emma Goldman. And it's primarily about education, but I thought it was kind of apropos considering all the stuff that's going on in the country right now, dealing with children. So joining me tonight is Trisha. How you doing tonight, Trisha?
I'm doing well. How about you?
Not too bad, not too bad. It's a pretty rainy day here, so I didn't get a lot of the planting done that I wanted to get done at work. But, you know, just hanging in there, I guess.
Great. Well, hopefully it'll be dry enough soon for you to get those in the dirt, you know?
Yep. Yeah, I have a planting to do tomorrow on a 29th floor patio. It's a bunch of seasonal color that I'm going to be planting up there. So like annual flowers and stuff like that. So that'll be fun.
No. I dig it. I can't wait to see pictures.
Yeah, I'll definitely post them. All right. So, and there may be other people joining tonight. I sent out the join link to a bunch of people, so there may be people joining at any time. But I think we will just get into things, unless you had anything else you want to talk about beforehand.
Not that I can think of, no.
All right, well, let's get into it then. Hi, Shanika. How are you doing tonight? Good to see you again. All right, well, let's get it started.
This audio production was made in collaboration with Audible Anarchist.
The Child and Its Enemies by Emma Goldman. Is the child to be considered as an individuality, or as an object to be moulded according to the whims and fancies of those about it? This seems to me to be the most important question to be answered by parents and educators, and whether the child is to grow from within, whether all that craves expression will be permitted to come forth toward the light of day, or whether it is to be kneaded like dough through external forces, depends on the proper answer to this vital question.
Yeah, so there you have kind of the main philosophy and teaching today, in that children are just seen as empty vessels that you just got to dump a bunch of facts and figures into, so that they'll be good little workers once they finally reach maturity and they can do math problems enough to work in your business, basically. That seems to be the main way that education is looked at.
And Emma, as always, comes out just fucking swinging there. Like, wait a minute.
That's right.
I love her style there. So that's the thing, you know. I mean, this is something that we bitch about all the time, of like, our schools are programming kids and telling them what to think instead of teaching them how to think critically and question the fucking thing.
Which is so much more critical, yeah.
Also, squashing their creativity. And I hate it. And thank you, Shanika. She said you just solved capitalism in one go.
Yeah,
that's Emma Goldman for you. Yeah. Emma vehemently hated capitalism, and rightfully so.
But I mean, the way that they do things now, mostly with the knowledge banking system, it just inherently leads kids to hate learning and hate school. And probably part of that's on purpose, because they don't really want people to question things too bad. Otherwise, they might ask the wrong questions and question the entire system. And it seems as though most people just kind of go along with the system we have, and either don't have the time or energy to question it, or just don't have the interest in it. So it seems like, yeah, I guess that's working if that is the goal. But I don't know. I love learning stuff. I love education, and I think it's just a tragedy that children are not instilled with more of a love of learning. Like if it was more them directing where they want to learn and what they want to learn, I don't think you'd have as much trouble with kids, dropping out or just struggling in school. I think that you would find that they can maintain a passion for learning their entire life if you just allow them to.
Right. Other countries whose education systems run differently than ours, like, yes, they do the whole well-rounded thing of like, you've got to learn all the basics, but when it comes to the rest of the curriculum, it's curtailed to each student of what are the things that you are intrigued by? What do you want to learn about? Where is your passion for learning? What is your creativity, and how can we feed that and fuel it? And here they're like, we want to squash you into this little box and
Yeah.
make another copied version of all this. And you would think that it might dawn on the people who are actually setting up the criteria for the education system, might think about that. If it hits them of like, well, I don't want them questioning shit too much, motherfucker, that's a red flag within you.
Right.
That's,
Right.
that's not a way to come at educating children.
Right. I mean, if your entire system and worldview hinges upon people not really being too critical of it ever, like, I mean, that kind of signals that you're building a house of cards. If that's all it takes is people to start questioning things and it just falls apart, that doesn't seem like a very solid foundation for anything. Because eventually,
Right.
despite the way that school goes, there are still plenty of children that make it through and still have a love of learning and are still interested and still somehow, one way or another, develop critical thinking skills. So those people end up becoming dangerous to the system then if no one can question it.
Right. And that to me is indoctrination, not education. That
Well,
just
there's
gives me
that too.
flashbacks of the culty ass Pentecostal church that my family forced us to go to when we were kids, and the pastor literally threatening to throw me in the garbage for questioning, well, this Bible verse says this and that Bible verse says that, and they're contradicting each other, so which one is true? And he called me trash, told me I belonged in the trash. How dare I question the word of God? And it's like, well, because
Wow.
it's contradicting itself. So that doesn't make sense to me. And at 7 years old, I had more fucking sense than
What?
the people teaching Sunday school. And
What
I
does
was
that
like,
say about what does that say
shit.
about that guy if he was defeated in argument by a 7-year-old?
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh,
I was like,
wow.
okay, last straw for me, because like I was
Right.
already fully aware of the sexism going on there and found all of that ridiculous. At 7 years old, I went, I'm not going to this school anymore. We're stuck in a cubicle teaching ourselves out of workbooks with
Oh,
K through 12 in one room for a couple $1,000s a semester. Fuck this. I'm going back to public school, and I'm not coming to the church anymore either. Like, I'm done.
yeah,
I'm
right
done
on.
threatening me. And they were like, oh, your kid's a heathen. Okay, whatever. Bye. I was like, that's just uncalled for to threaten me because you can't answer a basic question.
Yeah,
I
basic
wasn't being
question.
an asshole. I
Yeah.
was just like, why do these things contradict each other?
Mm-hmm. That was just too much.
Uh huh.
Oh,
If you could see his brain explode like in the cartoons and stuff, and
yeah.
shooting out the ears and everything, he couldn't handle that. And if that's how educators in our public system are actually treating students when they ask questions, instead of, I don't know, like the teachers I had in public school back in the day, being like, no question is a stupid question. You're open to ask anything. and I'll do my best to answer it. You know,
Yeah.
they've moved away from that of like, you don't get to question this. That's indoctrination.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, to just learn this stuff in here and then regurgitate it verbatim.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, that's just treating children like they're computers, like and basically that is how they think of them. They're just little, living machines that are going to carry out their will through, you know, being the engine of commerce someday.
Yep, they're literally programming them, and it's not okay. It's not okay. Like that limits creative thinking. That limits critical thinking.
Mm-hmm.
It's that's not education. Rote memorization doesn't work either when it comes to here. Just memorize this verbatim and repeat it back to me, and you'll pass
Yeah,
the
right.
test. What are you really gaining from that if you're not allowed to ask questions and have conversation and actually develop a thought process around these things in order to actually understand them? It's really
Right.
easy to memorize a script,
And
but then you forget it.
but then you see that method of thinking in adults too a lot, where like they will just memorize a bunch of talking points from whatever their political team is that they want to go cheer for, and they'll be able to regurgitate those talking points. But as soon as you get off of their predestined dialogue tree even a little bit, they got nothing because they don't actually know what they're talking about. They haven't actually absorbed it in any meaningful way. They just are able to say, oh, that's your argument? Well, I'll pull up this argument, and this argument counters your argument. And then, yeah, but but as soon as they find an argument that they haven't encountered before, they just don't know what to do.
That's why they usually end up jumping right into the logical fallacies department
Oh,
and
yeah.
either going ad hominem and just attacking your person.
Right. Well, that's usually
I've had
yeah.
jackasses come at me like, yo, you're just a bitch with purple hair. And I'm like, what the fuck does that have to do with anything? That just tells me that you can't even comprehend the points I'm bringing up to you and don't want to. You're refusing to because cognitive dissonance is a bitch.
Oh yeah, yeah. I get that same sort of argument all the time. It's like, oh, you're just fat, and I'm like, okay, well then you just got bested by a fat guy. How does that make you feel?
Right. I've gotten that one too. I mean, basically, not verbatim, but same response of, okay, you got bested by a fat chick.
Yeah.
Woo!
Doesn't that make you feel even worse then? If that's something that you think actually matters in terms of arguing, you're still losing now.
Right. The fact that I'm a chub doesn't make me wrong.
That's right, yeah. Hell yeah.
Like, damn it. That's not how anything works.
No,
like that
not at all.
means you're an ass, guy. It's people always go for that shit. Like, I mean, it's toddler level argument stuff.
Yeah, you're a
And it's
duty
like,
basically.
all you did was prove my point that you're not even putting any thought into this. Like, the wheels are turning, but nobody's actually in there. There's no real thought process happening.
No, because they just. I think for one thing, it's just they're not able to. People have not been taught how to think for themselves all that much.
Mm-hmm.
They've just been taught that this is what you believe. Whether it's from their parents, from their preacher, from their teacher, someone in authority their entire life, their boss has handed them the knowledge that they are supposed to have and said, this is what you think, and that's it.
Yep. I mean, that applies all the way down to training kids to ask for permission to go to the bathroom. Look at what's happening in workplaces where, no, you're not allowed to go to the bathroom unless it's your designated break. And it's like, are you fucking kidding me? What are you supposed to do? Wear a diaper and just piss yourself because you're stuck working on the line and you don't have a break for 6 more hours?
Yep, that's what's led to the infamous Amazon pee bottles and poop bags that they find all around their warehouses and fulfillment centers. It's sick. It's like, I don't really, even as an Amazon customer, I don't really want any of that stuff around my packages, but
me neither. Me neither. To me, that's OSHA regulations being violated like a motherfucker. Like,
Yeah.
no, let people go to the bathroom. They shouldn't have to ask you, can I go to the bathroom? That's the problem, is people being treated as an authority when they're not.
Right.
And that's what people are getting ingrained with from day one in the, education system. Whether it's private or public, they're getting told this person's an authority, that person's an authority.
Mm-hmm.
Not these people are supposed to be guiding you and assisting you. No, they're an authority. They're there to tell you what to do and what to think. That's not how anything should be run.
Absolutely. And I think another parallel in the education system to the workplace is the idea that for the hours of, 7 a.m. to, 2 p.m. if you're in school, or 9 to 5 if you're in work, your body and your decisions are not your own. There's very little time that is unstructured. There's very little time that you ever get to make a decision about anything. And it's the same whether you're in school and you're going from class to class to class, just doing the activities, never a moment, any time that you're even socializing, that's seen as your time off task, basically.
What are you doing fucking off?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's the same in the workplace.
It's ridiculous. Mm-hmm. Like, you're not being productive right now. What are you doing, wasteful?
Right.
It's ridiculous, as if every bit of our value comes down to productivity. I find that frustrating, and that's as a Capricorn who likes to be productive, but damn it, don't fucking try to come at me like, you have this list of 27 things you need to do in the next hour. Hot too. No, fuck you. It's punitive, it's abusive.
Mm-hmm.
It's a mind fuck.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's dehumanizing in both cases, because then it leads to educators just measuring things by standardized test results, and workplaces just measuring things by output, and like the person in these equations always becomes secondary. They're a means to an end. That end is either good grades that you can then say how great your school is and get more money and stuff, or productivity in your place of business. So it's just very dehumanizing.
Right. Very. That's inherent to capitalism. That's a root of the problem itself.
Yeah, it's commodification
it literally
of everything.
depends on like, you're not a person. You're here to fulfill a role. You have a quota to meet. Fuck off and meet it, or we're gonna fuck you over.
Yeah, absolutely. I don't think it's how people should live, or how they are meant to live. I don't know there's any one way that people are meant to live, but it kind of seems like this is definitely not one of those ways. Because, it just produces so much misery and fearfulness, bigotry. All these things are spawned by dehumanization and treating people like they are a means to an end rather than an end themselves.
That's capitalism in a nutshell.
Yeah, pretty much. All right, let's move on in the chapter, or in the essay.
The longing of the best and noblest of our times makes for the strongest individualities. Every sensitive being abhors the idea of being treated as a mere machine, or as a mere parrot of conventionality and respectability. The human being craves recognition of his kind. It must be borne in mind that it is through the channel of the child that the development of the mature man must go, and that the present ideas of the educating or training of the latter in the school and the family, even the family of the liberal or radical, are such as to stifle the natural growth of the child. Every institution of our day, the family, the state, our moral codes, sees in every strong, beautiful, uncompromising personality a deadly enemy. Therefore, every effort is being made to cramp human emotion and originality of thought in the individual into a straitjacket from its earliest infancy, or shape every human being according to one pattern, not into a well-rounded individual, but into a patient work slave, professional automaton, tax-paying citizen, or righteous moralist.
Yeah, that pretty much says it all. Yeah, like I was saying earlier, people that think differently are inherently viewed with suspicion, as though they're just radicals trying to cause trouble in an otherwise perfect system. It's really sad the way that you see bright and talented people just get crushed down by the gears that they are being processed through.
Yeah. If this system was so fucking perfect like they love to pretend it is, we wouldn't have so many issues coming from it.
Right. Yeah. We wouldn't have a constant rise of mental health issues. We wouldn't have a constant rise of physical health issues. We wouldn't be the first generation to have a lower life expectancy than our preceding generations, the people that came before us. And I like that she brings up emotion too, how emotion has to be stifled and cramped, and that is, the right in a nutshell. It's, you guys all believe in feels over reals, and the idea that to be well, especially for men, the idea that to be a man you have to suppress every emotion except for lust and anger, basically.
Yeah.
So we see that happening today as well.
Yeah. It's fucked up. It hurts everybody.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. But I mean, emotions are important. Emotions are part of the human experience, and to just stifle them for the cause of, enriching somebody else or processing through someone else's system.
Or even through their fucked worldview, like the patriarchal bullshit that comes into place, like you said, oh, well, men are only allowed to express anger and lust. Well, that means that, women are only allowed to express, softness and maternal shit and whatnot. That if a woman expresses anger or lust, oh my God, heathen.
Yeah, exactly. Yep. And there's gross double standards for all the emotions, and everyone is very quick to dismiss women as being emotional beings, as though men are not somehow.
Right. It's like, wait, who started every war in history because of how they felt?
Right, exactly. Oftentimes because they were goaded into it from their overinflated ego. So, yeah.
Yep. But it's women who are just overly emotional. And men are logical. As if these things, like, are something that actually can be paired with the shape of your genitals.
Yeah,
or
right.
Other part of gender paradigm. That's why gender roles themselves are fucked, because they want to pretend like things are even binary, and it's like you're leaving everyone else out who's anywhere in between the two.
Right.
And personality traits are not determined by your gender.
No, they're not.
Your emotional spectrum, not determined by your gender.
No.
We're all capable of all of them.
And that's the thing is everyone is both emotional and rational, and can be both at the same time.
Yes.
I mean, really, in order to stand for any cause of any kind, you have to care about it, and caring is emotion. So, there's no, what I'm saying is there's no way to rationally say, for example, we need to care about global warming. Because if you just don't care about other people, then no amount of data is ever going to change your mind about that. Because there's no amount of data that can prove that you should care about other people. It has to start from that emotional connection to humanity. And then you build from there and say, okay, I care about global warming. Now I can look at the science and see what is the best, if I care about global warming, what is the best way that I can combat that, or that we can combat that together. But it always starts from that emotion, and people don't really recognize that.
Right. It's like, I mean, it not even just the caring about other people, but caring about other life itself too. If animals, plants, hell, I mean,
Yeah.
do you care about yourself because your life fucking depends on the ecosystem remaining stable too? Do you give a shit about any kids that you have and future grandchildren, great grandchildren, whatever? Because if we don't take care of the environment, they're not going to have a fucking world to live in.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And
You know,
but all of that too depends on caring. So you have to have the emotional driver to begin with, or no, you're not going to care about that, and no amount of logic or facts or reasoning is going to ever change that. So.
right. You have to have some fucks to give.
Absolutely. All right, let's move on.
If one, nevertheless, meets with real spontaneity, which by the way is a rare treat, it is not due to our method of rearing or educating the child. The personality often asserts itself, regardless of official and family barriers. Such a discovery should be celebrated as an unusual event, since the obstacles placed in the way of growth and development of character are so numerous that it must be considered a miracle if it retains its strength and beauty, and survives the various attempts at crippling that which is most essential to it. Indeed, he who has freed himself from the fetters of the thoughtlessness and stupidity of the commonplace, he who can stand with moral crutches without the approval of public opinion, private laziness Friedrich Nietzsche called it, may well intone a high and voluminous song of independence and freedom. He has gained the right to it through fierce and fiery battles. These battles already begin at the most delicate age. The child shows its individual tendencies in its plays, in its questions, in its association with people and things. But it has to struggle with everlasting external interference in its world of thought and emotion. It must not express itself in harmony with its nature, with its growing personality. It must become a thing, an object. Its questions are met with narrow, conventional, ridiculous replies, mostly based on falsehoods, and when, with large, wondering, innocent eyes, it wishes to behold the wonders of the world, those about it quickly lock the windows and doors, and keep the delicate human plant in a hothouse atmosphere, where it can neither breathe nor grow freely. Zola, in his novel
It's just such a tragedy what happens to people that dare to be different. Dare to go their own way despite what everyone else is telling them they should do. They get targeted more than anybody. I mean,
Right.
I think,
Oftentimes for arbitrary shit that really doesn't affect anybody else. And it's like, why do you fucking care?
right.
It doesn't, you know, like, oh, that's frustrating. Especially, like, even when it comes to children, the subject of this essay,
Mm-hmm.
whether you even choose to have children or not, fucking total strangers feel like they're entitled to an opinion about them.
Yeah. Well, then also people that do become pregnant, total strangers view that as like community property as well. Like they feel just fine going up and touching a woman's or a pregnant person's belly, as though that's okay. So yeah, people somehow when it comes to reproduction and children, that's somehow a community decision that everyone gets to impose onto the individual. That's the one realm where individual rights and freedoms and choices shouldn't matter in a lot of people's eyes. It's kind of bizarre.
Part of that also comes back to a facet of rape culture of people not understanding consent. It's like, fuck you, you don't have my consent to touch my skin suit.
Right.
Don't touch me.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, if I was in that position, I would probably just, at minimum, slap a motherfucker's hands the fuck away from me. And depending on if I'm really in a bad mood, they might get a broken finger or something. Like, keep your fucking hands to yourself.
That's right. As it should be. No one should feel that they can just touch other people without their permission. And as much as we should be encouraging free thought and independent thinking and questioning stuff and learning to think for yourself and all that stuff, that's all well and good, and that's something that we really should focus on in education. But then there's the emotional side of that also is very much lacking in education, and I think that's where ideas of consent and just basic respect for other human beings should be talked about and taught.
Right. And ethics along with it too, of like, you don't have that privilege.
Right.
Your rights don't extend to other people's bodies.
Yeah, absolutely.
Your rights.
I don't know why that's so hard for people to understand, but yeah.
I mean, you can't even go to the fucking bar without somebody feeling the need to grab or squeeze something that they ain't supposed to, and it's like, excuse me, who the fuck do you think you are?
That's right.
Like,
that's such gross people. Looks like we have joining us Dan Platt, who's a constant guest on the show.
Right on. Hi,
Can
Dan.
you hear us, Dan? Oh, your audio's not coming through. Oh, I can barely hear you.
Hold on.
Okay.
Super muffled. Sound like Charlie Brown's teacher.
Yeah. Yeah, you're getting kind of that underwater audio effect. I can see you now, though.
How about now?
I don't know why it's so muffled, but your picture's coming through just fine. It's just the audio is screwed up somehow.
I dig the turquoise headset, though. That's dope.
How about now?
That's a little better.
Much better.
I think we can work with that. How you doing tonight, Dan? Oh, are you not able to hear me now?
No. I was just trying something.
Oh, okay.
The standard unplugging and plugging it back in with my microphone on both ends to see if that was the issue.
That's about the extent of my
is it better
tech
now,
support
or is it
knowledge.
the same?
It's a little better. I can definitely make out what you're saying now.
It's like we're optometrists. 1, 2, 1, 2.
That's right.
Pull the cord back out, plug on it like it's, or blow on the
Blow on it, yeah.
like a Nintendo game, and
Yeah.
back in.
I won't join you for the whole thing, but at least like maybe half an hour. So you're covering Emma Goldman discussing the abortion question, or just something else, Kevin?
No, it's the child and its enemies. So she's focusing on education and how we go about educating students, and basically that it's just the idea that students are automatons that you just open their head up and dump a bunch of knowledge in, and that's the end of it. No one is taught to think or question or even love learning. It's just rote.
Viewing education as another industrial activity for the industrial age.
Absolutely.
That breeding the next generation of laborers, because capitalism needs labor for
That's
free or
right.
cheap.
It needs labor reproduction.
Where they're
All
pushing for birth, they're like, we can't have the fucking birth rates dropping, people.
Oh,
We
God.
need your fucking labor chattel.
Absolutely.
So
That all ties into the great replacement nonsense.
Have I explained my experience as a magnet school student prior to middle school?
Okay.
I went to a magnet, sort of like a Montessori. It's sort of a mix between a Montessori school and a standard public school. But what it meant was we had a full computer lab. Our testing, besides the standard types, also included more critical thinking type puzzle tests, like how to use a scale and the type of things that did either of you play educational games like Jumpstart?
Oh yeah. Yeah, there was a bunch of those.
Big
yeah,
fan
I
of
didn't look that one specific.
I played the 4th, 5th, and 6th grade. It was definitely like a 90s thing.
Yeah, I remember Number Munchers as one of those.
Well, that's like a mini
I was
game. I'm talking
Yeah.
about
Diego.
yeah. So these are educational games, but like Jumpstart was like a all-in-one
Oh, okay.
story-based game that looked like it was like a 30-hour experience
Oh,
that
wow.
had increasingly difficult, basically, but it branched every subject, but it also included standards of logic puzzles, like the box stacking where you have like 10 boxes of various sizes and you have to get them all to fit together, but you can only fit, the stack of something that's bigger than it.
Oh, yeah.
Anyway, each of the like they were based on the grade, and they really like at least 2 grades above what it said. Like the 4th grade one was really more like 6th grade in most schools, and the 6th grade one was like high school level as far as the kinds of content that it had. Like, and there were 4th grade one was like a Halloween theme where like you're in a class and everyone in the class was turned into like a horror version of themselves. So the class clown, the scary clown, and I can't remember them all, but it was fun. But you basically have to go through the series of puzzles, each of a different subject, to transform them into their own selves.
Interesting.
And 5th grade was like a spy thing where you're basically a teenage sleuth. Like there's this organization doing something. I completely forgot what the story was, but the opening of the game was a crossword art museum, and all of the solutions to the crosswords were like the clues were about painting. So you need to find the painting in this virtual art museum.
Oh, that's creative.
And find the painting and fill in the crossword. It took forever, but I learned so much art history from just this news. And now, like, I could go into the art museum and go like, oh, it's like that. Like I understood everything.
Oh, that's really cool. So it sounds like you had a little bit better than average experience with the American educational system.
Well, these are games that were bought for me. They're home experiences, but but it's a kind of mixture of puzzles and critical thinking and fun storytelling, I suppose. With that stuff.
Yeah, I mean that I wish that was more the norm, but no, most of my school experience was just that, now we're going to do another 3-paragraph essay, and you're going to have a point, and it has to be backed up by 2 more points, and, now we do math.
A cheeseburger, like you construct an essay, like a cheeseburger?
I don't remember it being presented quite that way.
Oh, that's a shame. Basically, your paragraphs are your patties, and you have an interclusion that are the buns. And you should have at the beginning of the paragraph a thesis statement. The subject of the paragraph. You say you're going to put the paragraph is about, and that's the cheese.
All right, I can see that. I like that.
Anyway, enough from me.
Well, all right. Well, let's move on a little bit in the essay.
Fecundity maintains that large sections of people have declared death to the child, have conspired against the birth of the child. A very horrible picture indeed. Yet the conspiracy entered into by civilization against the growth and making of character seems to me far more terrible and disastrous because of the slow and gradual destruction of its latent qualities and traits and the stupefying and crippling effect thereof upon its social well-being. Since every effort in our educational life seems to be directed toward making of the child a being foreign to itself, it must of necessity produce individuals foreign to one another, and in everlasting antagonism with each other. The ideal of the average pedagogist is not a complete, well-rounded original being. Rather does he seek that the result of his art of pedagogy shall be automatons of flesh and blood, to best fit into the treadmill of society and the emptiness and dullness of our lives.
Wow. Joining us now is Nate.
Right on.
Hey,
What's
Nate.
up, bro?
Can you
Hola,
hear us?
senor. Yeah, I can
Hello.
hear you.
Awesome. You're coming in good.
Okay, good. Not too hot.
Nope. Yeah, the levels sound good. Sounds clear and everything.
Excellent. Okay, yeah, go ahead, continue. You're fine, thank you.
All right.
Every home, school, college, and university stands for dry, cold utilitarianism, overflooding the brain of the pupil with tremendous amounts of ideas handed down from generations past. Facts and data, as they are called, constitute a lot of information, well enough perhaps to maintain every form of authority and to create much awe for the importance of possession, but only a great handicap to a true understanding of the human soul and its place in the world. Truth dead and long forgotten, conceptions of the world and its people, covered with mould, even during the times of our grandmothers, are being hammered into the heads of our young generation. Eternal change, thousandfold variations, continual innovation are the essence of life. Professional pedagogy knows nothing of it. The systems of education are being arranged into files, classified and numbered. They lack the strong, fertile seed which, falling on rich soil, enables them to grow to great heights. They are worn and incapable of awakening spontaneity of character. Instructors and teachers with dead souls operate with dead values. Quantity is forced to take the place of quality. The consequences thereof are inevitable.
So something that occurs to me in the last few paragraphs that she's been talking about is that capitalism likes to build itself up as like this tremendous, engine of innovation, as though all of these wonders of technology just could not have come about if not for the free market. And yet we have an education system that is being portrayed by Emma Goldman as being completely anathema to that. It's like completely opposite to having that sort of an outcome. Because how do you have great innovators who cannot think for themselves? How do you have great leaps forward in technology if everyone is just programmed to be another gear in the machine serving someone other than themselves?
Yeah. You can't expect innovation out of people who've had every fucking drop of creativity squeezed out of them and told to conform.
Right. Absolutely.
When you're not allowed to think outside the box, how the fuck are you going to do so? If you're told, well, no, this is how you have to do it because this is how we've always done it.
Mm-hmm.
Particularly if you're punished, especially the punished for non-conforming. If there's maybe a loose hand, then people will find creative solution in the margins. As long as they're not being completely watched, we do the way adults do.
Mm-hmm.
Find creative solutions around any kind of regulation, whether just the way corporations do. You can lay down any regulation we desire to protect people. They will find a way to still make profit.
Right.
Yep.
I just heard this. I listen to a lot of stuff at work, and baby formula makers that even more regulated in Europe, and they still make money. Or rather, corporations in America operate in other countries where they're more regulated, still profitable. Right. They're just more profitable here because they can, exploit us even more than they would
That's right.
Europeans or Asians.
Yep.
Yeah. They can lobby Congress to not raise the minimum wage and things like that, legalize bribery, and they would rather spend that money to buy off politicians' votes to fuck us for another generation than spend that money actually paying people the value of their labor.
Yeah, and spend that money union busting at every turn.
Yeah. Oh yeah, absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
They dump so much money into union busting; it's unreal. It's sickening.
It's incredible.
It's sickening. It's like That could be somebody's fucking benefits, you assholes.
Yeah,
Like, ah, looking at Jeff Bezos right now.
absolutely, as everyone should. All right, well, let's move on.
In whatever direction one turns, eagerly searching for human beings who do.
You say what year was this? Did this come out? Is that
Yeah,
what your
I'm
question
seeing an
was?
old picture, like a picture of old Emma Goldman. Was it written in the 20s or the late 80s?
Let's see.
I actually forget how long she lived.
Right, she was writing for so many decades. It's hard to place right where in the era.
Yeah, let me look it up quick.
Right, I'm curious now too. I mean, everything I've read of her so far has been nothing but fucking prophetic. Of like, hey, ain't shit changed. You know, the things that she
Oh, yeah.
was calling out at that point in time, it's still relevant.
Yeah, it's almost like we've taken, 2 steps forward and 1 step back.
Oh, yeah.
That
continues.
cha-cha?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, just, I mean, how radical and extreme they were then, we, are very much marginal still now, for the same reasons. And our positions haven't changed so too far from Goldman and other anarchists at the time. I think what we need to learn is how to organize better than they did, or in a way that lasts longer, isn't vulnerable to in the way she organized at the time,
Yeah.
which left her kind of literally out in the cold,
Yeah.
being exiled to the Soviet Union, and then where I guess she was still writing and publishing there, but she didn't seem to be organizing against the regime.
No,
That
seemed to
I
take.
know of. That I know of. I could.
Yeah, that seemed to take all the wind out of her sails, being exiled back to the Soviet Union, and then she was pretty disillusioned. Her and Alexander Berkman were pretty disillusioned with the way the Soviet Union was going. They had high hopes for it, but then they seemed to have lost the faith somewhere in there.
Yeah, I
So
think that's why she had so many problems with communism as a whole, is because of being exiled in that manner.
yeah, you're almost certainly right. And by
She
the way,
also called out the problems where it wasn't fully communistic. There was still a fucking bourgeoisie class, basically.
Mhm.
It was just either you were in the ruling class running the government or you are one of everyone else. And she was like, that's not even what communism is supposed to be. So that, that's something that she called out as well. And the way that they treated her really highlights what Amanda just said. If they're afraid because they're outnumbered, that's exactly it. People like Emma and Alexander and everyone else they were collaborating with was actually firing up the working class in great numbers, and they weren't playing games. They were coming out fucking picketing and asking for shit. They were coming out picketing and burning shit. Like, oh, you don't want to fucking pay us? We will set your entire train yard on fire. Who can blame them?
Yeah.
I'm like, we need more of that. Just saying.
Well, it definitely catches the attention of the ruling class. That's for
Speaking
sure.
of the SU, is that a SU flag above you, Nate?
What's that?
Yeah.
Oh, your flags? Yeah.
Yeah.
No, that's fine. There were certainly some great things about the Soviet Union, especially early on. I think they were the I think they were the first country in the world to recognize gay marriage, and then there was some other early on progressive stuff.
Yeah, I think they tried.
Yeah.
Right.
I also think that they also got led astray.
Yeah.
And it's something that's inevitable to happen with a centralized government. You know what I mean? So But I think they tried and were successful early on with a lot of things when it came to workers' rights.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah, that's for
They
sure.
they
Yeah,
definitely did make leaps and bounds there. It's that there was still areas that could use some fucking improvement, and that's why it's basically an experiment of like what will work and what won't. We can see with Cuba what does work beautifully with communism.
Yeah.
Yes, they still have a centralized government, but it's completely beholden to the people. They're held accountable. If the
Yeah.
people say we want this, we need this done, it gets fucking done because they already know they have a very revolutionary society simply because of having understood like the gains that they made from their revolution that they're like, we'll throw your ass out too. Like, don't play.
Good. It's a good argument for the. There was a piece I was reading from Current Affairs. Every state should be a microstate. That
Hmm.
state necessities, more or less. Small government should be more liberal. It should be covering a smaller territory because that means there's less people to recruit for arms, less resources to control in the first place, and thus these smaller states are more interdependent on each other for goods and services, producing but more fair trade. As states should be roughly more the same size. That is, no bigger than Switzerland or something like that. There's different ways of looking at thinking about it. It was written by a guy who literally Adora. It's like Adora, you love it, which is that little tiny in the Pyrenees mountains.
Oh yeah. Yeah, one of those microstates.
You can only get in two ways. So, and he said it's not like any particular Western politics. He's just making the case that things are simpler as far as how things work, and there's a lot of benefits.
Yeah.
And there definitely needs to be more accountability even on those smaller scales too, where if you are local representation and you go to meet up with others from other states and you're not actually representing what the people in your state want and what they have voted to pass, if you go against that, you should be held accountable. Right now, we
Absolutely.
have representatives who don't fucking represent us because they're not actually held accountable to what we tell them we want. It's a matter of, oh, well, if they feel like if they can think about it, they can consider it. And if it fucking meets what they're wanting to do personally, then they can go ahead with it. And if it doesn't, they can pretend like they never even got notified by the community that that's what the community wants.
Right.
They can completely ignore it. It's up to their own personal whims, and that's a fucking problem.
Right. It makes your constituents useless in the first place. So, like what Dan was talking about, smaller states, that would help alleviate a lot of it, because the smaller you are, the more reliant you are on your community, and therefore the more people are pitching in, the more people are as you were talking about, what's the word, accountable.
Yeah.
So yeah, absolutely.
Hi, Amanda.
Hey,
How's it going?
good. My bread was done, so I figured I'd come crash your party.
Oh yeah, Amanda's been baking
Oh, yeah.
furiously these past few days. And is this your first sourdough? Have you actually started a sourdough loaf yet?
No, but Lurch is ready to be baked, so I'll probably bake him tomorrow.
Which is what she's named her sourdough starter.
Apparently that's a
Nice.
thing. Because you can share it with people, and
Yes.
it's fun.
You just feed it and it becomes a Frankenstein monster.
Yeah.
Sounds like cannibalism. I always knew
Basically.
Monkeys were eaters of babies. Anyway, I actually popped in maybe I'll pop in a different spring, get to editing my own show. And,
all right. Well,
so
thank you so much for joining, Dan.
Thanks
I
for
always
creating the
appreciate it.
green room and the functionality. And,
Yeah. I'm glad to see people taking advantage of that. It's really exciting.
All right.
Hell yeah.
So,
Check me out
Good to
on
see you, Dan.
last night. I did a Monday. I did an interview with the Skeptical Left. So check that out.
oh, very cool.
All right.
I've heard of him.
Later.
All right. Well, have a good night, Dan. And everyone, check out the Three Left show. That is Dan's enterprise. I will link it in the chat for y'all.
Nice. Thank you.
You're welcome. So he's in the process of transitioning to a new podcast platform. I'm not exactly sure how that's all going to shake out, but for now, you can find all his stuff on threelefts.news. So there it is for you in the chat.
Speaking of bread, I'm eating homemade tortilla.
Oh, homemade!
Yum.
Those are the
Yeah.
best.
Look how
It's
thick
like-
that thing is.
Oh, they
Beautiful.
look so
Gosh.
good. I love a good thick tortilla. And
Mhm.
there's nothing like homemade ones. It doesn't even compare to store-bought. Like, store-bought is garbage. compared
For
to
real, yeah.
homemade.
Makes good pizza too.
Yeah, oh yeah.
Absolutely,
That would
yeah.
make a really nice flatbread pizza.
Hmm.
All right, well, let's continue on in the essay.
I'm
Not
like,
measure
I got
ideas
no
in
bread.
We got to send you some bread so then you can have some.
Yeah.
Hell yeah.
I'll make
I
her
can
a lurch
receive
loaf.
Yeah. Maybe you can send her some starter eventually too. And we can just multiply lurch around the country.
I could, but lurch needs to be fed a lot.
Oh, does it not travel well?
I don't know. I'd have to
Okay.
look into it. I mean, it might be possible. I just don't want to kill him.
Okay, fair enough.
But baked lurch would travel fine.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
All right, moving on.
Motions with the yardstick of expediency. One is confronted with the products, the herd-like drilling instead of the result of spontaneous and innate characteristics working themselves out in freedom. No traces now I see, whatever of a spirit's agency. 'Tis drilling, nothing more. These words of Faust fit our methods of pedagogy perfectly. Take, for example, the way history is being taught in our schools. See how the events of the world become like a cheap puppet show, where a few wire pullers are
Where we talk about white history.
Yeah. Oh man, talk about the world history or world events being a puppet show. Look at all the cheerleaders of the war between Russia and Ukraine on both sides, really. But people are just like cheering on wars as though it's like a the next bingeable Netflix series, and like
Yeah,
you have
it's
a
a
cast of
sport.
characters that you can get attached to and get sad if they end up dying or being injured in some way. And it's just like,
Yeah.
And the
He's
commercial.
so based, he said he doesn't need a taxi. He just needs ammo. Like, bro, really? Come on now.
Right. And the profits they're trying to drive off of it, right? Like,
oh my god.
oh, Ukraine! Look, I made a leather Ukraine purse. It's half blue, half yellow. Oh my god! Like in the T-shirts and stuff. Like, come
I
on!
mean, let alone the war
Merchandising.
profiteering.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
It literally makes me think of reality TV on crack.
Exactly, it's
People got
sickening.
so used to like having a vote of vote this person off the island or vote this person into a record deal, and they're like, we want to vote these motherfuckers into war. Let's fucking put our lame ass blue and yellow flags on our Facebook and be like, Slava Ukraine, go Nazis. What?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I mean, and what gets lost in the fray every time is the actual regular everyday people that are the worst affected by all of this, both in Russia and in Ukraine.
Mm-hmm.
Those people are never talked about unless it's to hold them up as, look at how horrible the other side is being to these specific people. Otherwise, they're just ignored.
Or like just like, oh gosh, thinking about these people having to like flee their countries and go into another country and losing their jobs and losing everything and maybe not being able to work or not having stable housing, you just basically like rip away these people's baseline, and it's like, okay, I live in a country where my baseline is already pretty unstable. I couldn't imagine being in somebody else's shoes and having that baseline ripped away. Like, shit, that's scary. And we're like, oh, isn't this cute? Like, sunshine and farts, everybody's fine. It's just like this cute little war. We're gonna like film it and stuff.
Right.
Wild.
Actual human beings.
Yeah,
it's fucking adding insult to injury that the rest of the world is treating it like their favorite fucking daytime drama.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's horrific. Well, and all the same people who will only use refugees as props, and when it's the right kind of refugees, are the same people that are just so up and
white, right?
Exactly. They're even the liberal ones who are like, well, I do feel for the people at our U.S. border, but we have to have the rule of law and then a due process and all this stuff.
Right.
It's like, due process your ass. Go find something to fucking set up for people. You have enough. Everybody has enough. It's just this like perceived notion of scarcity.
Well, and by and large, the people that are coming here
Manufactured
too.
scarcity.
Yeah, and the people that are coming here too are also fleeing wars. It just often happens to be wars that we've caused or destabilized countries that we ourselves have caused.
Including the drug war. Yeah.
Absolutely, especially the drug war. Yeah.
Yep.
But like this is different.
Yeah, it's different. I think that's the thing that I hate the most about it is that they'll say it's different when it's really not. Like if this was Yemen or any of the other tens of countries that had poor brown disenfranchised people, then they wouldn't even care about it.
Yeah,
wouldn't even be on the news.
Yeah,
as they still don't care about
anybody's
Syria,
register.
as they still don't care about Palestine, as they still don't care about Yemen. Yeah, they don't care as long as it's not being told to them every day by whatever news channel. They don't even think about it.
Right.
Falls off their radar.
Yeah.
If never hit it in the first place.
But all of this ties back into the educational system, because most people have been taught to just accept things as the authority tells them they are. So when you have an education system that has already primed you to just accept the world narrative as usually your political team is giving them to you,
which is crap.
Which is often crap because it's
that's not how I was.
Biased
they
towards
make it
capitalism.
a sport.
Yeah.
Right.
Like my grandpa growing up was like, question everything, and the people that shut down your questions, those are the people to be afraid of because they can't back their shit up. Those are the people to like keep your distance from, and I've always like held that in my heart. Like, if I can't ask questions and get answers or referrals to someone who can give me good information, then I'm out.
It's a big red flag, yeah. And just like Trisha was talking about earlier, the when she was 7 and some was it a pastor or was it a priest? I don't know. Some holy guy could not stand up to the least bit of questioning about the Bible and told her she was garbage.
Wow.
Yep, because I was like, why does this verse contradict that verse? Which one's true? Which one am I supposed to believe?
Right.
I got called a fucking blasphemer, heathen, trash, the whole fucking 9 yards for that one. He threatened to throw me in the garbage can outside.
Yeah.
What?
So it's like you were saying, Amanda, you got to be careful with these people because they are always the most dangerous.
They're volatile.
If you make them look stupid or embarrassed, then they will be violent.
Like, again, though, if you have come to understand the world a certain way, you would be able to back that up. You would be able to provide evidence. Like, there's plenty of evidence that supports giving people housing is a good thing. It helps people stabilize, and then they can do the harder work of, like, getting through whatever crises got them into the place of not having housing in the first place.
Right. Yeah. Well, it's like I said a couple weeks ago. You know, if you can die without it, it should be free. That's the responsibility of the government.
Right on.
I love that.
I mean, that is the baseline for what our country is supposed to stand for in our, you know, our heart of hearts. When we talk about, like, the Declaration of Independence standing for life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, if you don't have any one of those things that supports your life, guess what? You don't have life, liberty, and pursuit of happiness. It's pretty damn alienable at that point.
Yeah, you certainly don't have liberty, which is evident by all of the wage slaves.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, they have no free choice at all in where you work,
I need
for
to,
what
like,
wages you work for, the conditions of your workplace, and most people don't have any say in any of that. So, you know, land of the free here.
what was it that you said again? How did you word that? Because that was, like, perfect. It was, like, clean and neat.
Oh, if you can die without it, it should be free.
That's beautiful.
We need to make a mental note of that. That is also going to go on a T-shirt.
That should be on a T-shirt.
Based, but yeah, that should be on a T-shirt. Hell yeah, I'm down.
That's cool.
That's going to get added to.
Let's get into that marketing.
Merch.
Yeah.
Well,
Yes.
and the funny thing about what you guys were talking about with the holy guy, you know, he didn't want to be proved to not be infallible because he thought he was, and that's exactly where we are with our politicians at this point too.
Oh God, yes.
So, you know, that's scary times. That really is.
It really is.
Also, like, we hold certain people to such standards. Like, when I think about how we treat children, and we tell kids it's okay to admit when you made a mistake, and we encourage it, right? But we as adults, like, no, we're not admitting when we made a mistake. We're not holding ourselves accountable.
Right.
Nor are the people that are begging and groveling for votes holding themselves accountable for the shit that comes out of their mouths and the promises they make to people.
Yeah.
Like, it's bullshit. Like, if you're gonna... sorry. Okay, I'm on my high horse. Just tell me to get
You're
off.
fine.
Keep
You're
going.
good.
If some politician gets up and it's got this big laundry list of all this shit they're gonna do, let's say there's 20 things on there, this is my to-do list while I'm in office, and they do not satiate 75% of the shit on that list, they're out next time. Like, they shouldn't even get to be on the ballot, they're done.
I mean, that'd be pretty great.
Like, you didn't
I think that's what upsets me a lot about the Biden administration is because they've got all these things that they could do, but their excuse is, well, it'll just get overturned in the next administration, and it's like, so
Doesn't
what?
matter.
Let him
Endless
try.
excuses.
Yeah.
Right.
Let him try to overturn it. Like, just make sure that it's there and give him that fight. But we won't even do that.
Right, and enough people would protest these things. I mean, shit. Look at all the Planned Parenthood-oriented protests that have happened since this Roe v. Wade thing has spilled out.
Oh, yeah.
And it's freaking
absolutely.
people out. And it should, because we're not done. And we won't be done unless it stays how it is now.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like...
Yeah, the Republicans are not even in power, and yet somehow they are managing to force their agenda onto the rest of the country.
Right.
Without anyone say.
That's because Democrats are all vanilla beige and passe, and like, ooh, my partisanship, I'm gonna reach across the aisle and achieve my dreams. Like, no, you're not. Like Trisha says, you're just giving them a reach around.
Well, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, the Democrats, especially at the national level, are basically just that meme with a kid riding the bike and putting the stick in its own spokes.
Right.
And then crying about it. They will come up with any excuse to not pass their agenda. Oh, it's Joe Manchin. Oh, it's Kristen Sinema. Oh, it's the parliamentarian. Oh, he won't let us do it.
No.
That mean parliamentarian
Right.
who's an unelected position that everyone else is just fired when they don't do what they say.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like-
What was it that I called it? I forgot. The rotating villain, because it's always somebody new every single time. But the newest villain is the left. Just like they blamed it on progressives, that they couldn't pass certain things with the special elections. Get ready for that again. They will absolutely do progressives and leftists. They're going to get thrown under the bus with the midterms. I guarantee it. Yeah.
Always trying to cater to the center, never trying to cater to the people that are feeling disenfranchised because they're outside of the political mainstream.
Right.
We'll come for them too.
It's not realizing it, but they're acknowledging that they are actually center to center right, not on the left, because they're more fucking worried about pulling Republicans into the Democrat Party than they are about, I don't know, addressing anybody to the left of hunting the homeless for sport.
Right.
Like,
literally, yeah.
Pull a damn lesson from the right, since you're always trying to fucking reach around them all the time. They don't give a shit
No, they don't care
about what Democrats want.
They don't care about being
And they
hypocritical.
just hold on. So like, if the Democrats are really worth shit, they would just say, "You're not gonna do it, fuck you," and band together instead of dividing all the time. Like, you got Nancy Pelosi chasing around AOC and the squad all the time, cornering her in spaces and chewing her out, and
Right.
I mean, come on. Right. God, I'm gonna get into politics.
You should.
I'm gonna goth pantsuits, and I'm gonna chase Nancy Pelosi.
That sounds fun.
Based.
Back in her corner, be like, "Listen, geriatric bitch,
Right.
you
With
got a
the
job to
performative
do."
Bullshit.
Right? Like, I'm coming for you, and I'm not gonna get out of your way until you do what I tell you. You're gonna vote the way I say, and if you fuck it up, I'm gonna fine you.
Well, and I think the thing that really upsets me is that not only did they completely push the left under a bus, then they come back on MSNBC and all these things, and their new thing is, oh well, that's not politics, that's populism, as if there's a difference.
Yeah.
And so as if populism, the plight of the people, is just something that's completely different, and we shouldn't even worry about that or cater to it. And it's like, are you serious? Really?
Right. They're like, we have our niche. Right.
Yeah.
We don't care what the majority of people want. We just want to serve our niche.
Right.
That's how both of those fucking parties come at it.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's like with the whole Roe v. Wade shit. Like, you don't want an abortion? Don't fucking get one. You don't want to use Planned Parenthood services? Fine, bitch. Don't use them. That's all you have to do. Easy peasy.
Right.
No one's telling you can't believe in make pretend Jesus Christ and shit.
Well,
no one's taking that away from you.
Unless
Sky Daddy.
Unless they can control other people's bodies, then they don't think they can believe and be a good Christian or Jew or whatever religion is backing up their...
Yeah, we want to control
Your
women's
stuff,
bodies,
yeah.
but we don't want to control guns. Cool.
Right. Right.
That.
Well,
because they want to use the guns to control women's bodies, and this is
exactly.
coming from a gun owner.
Yeah.
You know?
Yep.
If there was a women's march that was armed, they would be ready to do some gun control.
Absolutely.
Is
Yeah.
that what we're doing wrong? I should have brought my baton out last time. Damn it.
Or
There's a,
katana, spear, anything. Bring a spear and put a vagina flag on that motherfucker.
There you go.
Yeah.
And it's for holding my flag.
Yeah.
But it's also self-defense if you need it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's a book
Pitchforks,
that
I don't care. Fucking grab it up.
I'm like, you're taking away my freedom.
Right. Well, and that's the thing is that we're not even asking for regulation or anything. We're just talking about bodily autonomy.
Mm-hmm.
That's great, Shanika.
Yeah. Pussy hat, spear flag, and a bandolier of tampons. Watch out.
Yep.
It's a
Oh,
tampon gun.
we got, man, there's another t-shirt idea.
Right. There we go.
Pussy hat on your gown.
That's 2 in
You know
1
how back
stream.
in like the 60s there was the pictures of the rifles with flowers in them?
Yeah.
Put a tampon in that.
There you go.
Marketing.
I like that.
God, we're really missing the market.
I should talk to my
We
friends.
really got to get on these t-shirts.
Makes t-shirts all the time.
I think enameled pins too would be a good seller.
Yeah, those
Keep
are hard.
it subtle. They're classy though.
They are classy,
And
but
the left, the true left.
from an inventory
The
standpoint,
leftists
they're
are
difficult to put out there.
Yeah,
I've looked
but
into it.
we're classier.
You know what I really want?
Fucking
I want us to have hats with a Velcro patch on the front of it, and that way we can just use the patches like the patches that people put on like body armor and stuff. Just put whatever you want on your hat. You can change the patch every single
that's a good idea.
day if you want.
That's a really great idea.
Hell yeah.
NFTs, but with patches.
Yes, exactly.
There we go. We're in, guys. We're in.
Sorry, give me just a moment. I'm going to mute my mic because if I don't answer this call, they're going to be like, "Are you still alive?"
Okay.
Gotcha.
No worries.
No worries.
We need to validate life. We understand.
Yeah.
All right. Well, let's
Oh, baby,
Let's bring it back to
get
the-
bored.
the reason we're here today.
Oh yeah. Sorry.
Whoops.
That's okay. I always love the side tangents and whatnot. It's
I'm gonna
always
get
fun.
kicked out.
Supposed to have directed the course of the development of the entire human race and the history of our own nation. What is not chosen by Providence to become the leading nation on Earth? And does it not tower mountain high over other nations? Is it not the gem of the ocean? Is it not incomparably virtuous, ideal, and brave? The result of such ridiculous teaching is a dull shadow patriotism, blinded to its own limitations, with bull-like stubbornness, utterly incapable of judging of the capacities of other nations. This is the way the spirit of youth is emasculated, deadened through an overestimation of one's own value. No wonder public opinion can be so easily manufactured.
Jeez, yeah. She's talking about manufacturing consent back in 1909.
Damn.
Like almost 100 years before Noam Chomsky came out with the book by that name.
It reminds me of, like when we were talking about with like I swear I'm just going to have a profile picture that just says, I support the latest thing.
Yeah.
Right. That meme, I have so many friends who have slapped that up as their profile pic to be like, oh my God, fuck this dumb shit here, you guys.
Yeah.
Right.
It's so appropriate. Because people just jump on whatever fucking bandwagon that the TV tells them to.
Mm-hmm.
Bless you.
It's like what's trending.
Right.
Instead of shit we should perpetually care about, like leftist issues. Like, do we all have food? Do we all have stable housing? Do we all live on a living wage? Oh, right, we don't. But we don't care because when people get excited about that, we get nervous.
Yeah. Yeah, they do. That gives away the entire game when people realize that.
They should get nervous.
That they should get nervous, but we should also make them nervous. Gotta
Right.
do that.
That's the thing. The government should be scared of its people, not the other fucking way around.
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
Indeed. Speaking of that, there's a book. It's called This non-violent stuff will get you killed.
Yeah.
Great book. It's basically a book about how the civil rights movement wouldn't have gone anywhere without the Panthers and armed black and brown people. And so as far as like making your government nervous, yeah, it absolutely touches on all of that, and it should be an awakening to most of the left that, hey, we're gonna have to, like, do something different, because this is all falling on deaf ears because it's performative and they know it. So
Right.
I hate to be an accelerationist, but sometimes the envelope needs to be pushed. Good
Well, the
book
thing is,
though.
pushing for pacifism, though, that right there gives them the monopoly on violence that they want, as far as the government goes.
Yeah.
Well,
Absolutely.
It's a very ahistorical way of viewing everything that's come before us. Virtually every good thing that we have today, everything that we can actually be proud of, has been advanced in some part by violence. And it's not always been people initiating the violence, it's often people being subject to the violence and then pushing back. But still, violence is a component of it.
Correct. Yeah. Absolutely, yeah.
And, look, they didn't take things that serious when it was all peaceful marches and, preaching against violence. They didn't start to take shit seriously until the Panthers came out armed, and they were like, we are tired of you fucking using violence against us, so you put us in the position of having to use violence to protect ourselves. Fuck off. And then they were like, oh shit, and got fucking nervous and shit their collective pantaloons,
Right. Yeah, that's the only time the NRA ever stood for gun control. Is when a bunch of armed black militant looking guys were, standing at City Hall.
Right? Like, how dare you exercise the same rights as white people coming in here armed? You can't come in here armed while you have pigment. It's fucked up. It's fucked up. They, they tried to act as if the Second Amendment only fucking applied to white people.
And they still act that way.
Right. Right.
They really do.
Right. I mean, for fuck's sake, Nazis can go march through the middle of cities armed to the fucking hilt. But if BLM does it or the Panthers do it, then everybody's shitting their pants. Oh my God, I can't believe they have guns.
Right.
Shut the fuck up, Karen.
Right.
We saw this happen about a month ago in Grand Rapids, where, who was fucking bitching and crying and whining the most about seeing armed Panthers in the streets marching?
Who's that?
Was white people who own fucking guns too, and they're like clutching their pearls. And it's like,
there you go. Yeah.
Seats, please.
Yep.
Right.
Yeah, it's just like when non-white people protest in white affluent neighborhoods, like the McCloskey people in Missouri, who were out there assured that a race war had started, and they were being come for, out there with their guns, waving it at the protesters, who none of them were armed. But it just goes to show the way that they view the world and expect it to go. That rich people will always be spared from any inconvenience or danger, and that they have every right to be violent if it does not conform to their expectations.
Yeah, yeah. Well, and that's the linchpin of the whole thing for me, is that I'm not completely convinced that we shouldn't have guns, but I'm not against the arming, as long as the rich and powerful give theirs up first.
Yeah.
Because as far as that goes, that's the only ones that will have access to it. It'll be no different than it is in Germany if we let them get away with it. In Germany, the only people that have guns outside of police and military are the rich. because they can afford the all the different, you know, laws and hurdles and hoops that they have to jump through in order to get one. Normal people don't have that ability.
Okay.
Yeah, it's
No,
not
I
okay.
mean, we even see just in how unaffordable it is to purchase guns anymore. You know, it's a massive paywall to overcome. Just to
Yeah.
even have that tool in your toolbox to fucking protect your own life.
Yeah, yeah. The simplest Derringer this day and age is like $300.
Seriously?
You know?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
It's
yeah, I
nuts.
totally agree with that.
I would expect some of that has to do with the fact that every time there is a mass shooting, gun stores like sell out of their stock immediately.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
But I'm sure they're also taking advantage, like every other corporation does, when people want something, just like they've been doing with gasoline prices.
Yep. Yep.
Yep.
Yeah.
Like, I wonder often about, like, school shootings and stuff, and they're like, arm the teachers! Arm the teachers!
Oh, well, that's the worst
Like-
of all ideas.
What would happen, though? Like, if Miss Dingle Fritz whips her gun out
What would happen
and
if...
shoots the shooter? Like, you know what
Guarantee
I mean?
we'd
Like,
have a new statistic saying, oh, guess what? Teachers, by far and wide, shoot more black and brown kids than they do white kids. That's what would happen.
That's one thing that would happen, but then also it would be, instead of a school shooter having to bring a gun into the school, all they would have to do is figure out how to get into whatever locked case or desk drawer
Right.
or whatever it is, and hey, they got a gun in school already. So,
Right. Yeah, it's right there for
Yeah.
them. Yeah.
and that's where it just gets really, like, icky and complicated. Like, I don't know. Personally have really mixed feelings about guns. They make me nervous. I don't own one, but then at the same time, I worry about shit and kind of wonder, like, okay, well, I don't have any criminal history, and I don't think I would use it impulsively, so maybe it wouldn't be a bad idea to take some classes and
No, it absolutely wouldn't be a bad
Like-
idea.
carry.
And honestly, like, if you do take the training courses and stuff, that will get you a lot more comfortable with it, you know?
Right.
A lot of that uncomfortable feeling is not being familiar with it, you know? So it's a safety thing, of course, that's going to cross your mind. Of, like, oh, what if I butterfinger this motherfucker? You know?
Right.
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 And that's where a lot of it comes from for me, because I'm not the smoothest individual.
well, you know.
Yeah,
Most-
but when you've learned the 4 rules and you've ingrained them into habit, it's no more dangerous than a hammer at that point. Honestly,
Right.
because
Right.
you understand the gravity behind it, and that it is a force multiplier, and you know what grave consequences come with mishandling it. So,
Yeah.
and that's the only thing that's going to get us out of this, in my opinion, is that if you're in a country that already has more than 900 million guns on the streets, banning further sales isn't going to do anything.
Right.
You back in the day, they used to have guns in schools. You know, people used to clean them during
Right.
shop class and then use them during shooter clubs. You know,
Right.
it was right next to archery and stuff.
Mhm.
But over time, we decided to make them so taboo that the only thing kids know about guns this day and age is Fortnite and Halo and yeet, haha, respawn. And when you grow up with that kind of mentality, you're not going to give any further thought of the gravity of the situation, even while you're pulling the trigger and blowing your classmates away.
Right.
So
People
it
don't
really and
respawn in
truly,
real life.
Yeah.
exactly.
It's permanent.
And so, like everything else, understanding is key. Understanding and teaching, but that's the hard part to do, and so parents don't want to hear it. You know what I mean?
Yeah, there's like so many topics that I feel like places avoid. I mean, I worked in a public school this past year. There was not an ounce of sex ed even like for the older elementary school girls who are probably starting to get their menstrual cycles, like, who's talking to them about this?
Right.
Right.
Yeah. They're just going to have to like find it out for themselves.
Yeah,
Right.
Basically,
that's
the parents
worst
just
way.
like hand them a tampon and act like they already know what to do. Like,
Yeah, that's not an intuitive thing. Like, it's like, okay, like, there's different sizes, there's different things. Like, what is normal, what is not normal? Like,
Right.
these are conversations that should actually be occurring.
But then also bringing in that consent component, because that's incredibly important, not just for sex ed though too, but for every relationship. Consent
Yeah.
is kind of a cornerstone piece of any good and healthy relationship.
yeah.
And
Yeah.
Because some
Just don't
people
touch it.
are, some people are really touchy and some people aren't, and it's better to just ask, hey, can I give you a hug? Oh, okay, you don't want a hug?
Right.
Mhm.
I understand, but if you change your mind, I have
I'm
one
here.
waiting for you.
Yeah.
Right.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah. And that's part of that consent conversation is being able to deal with that rejection. I mean, basically incel, I'm not supposed to use that word, but the I word is basically formed around the entire idea that getting rejected is the worst thing in the world. And
Right,
that
right.
you know, that should make you feel like subhuman almost. And so kids, everyone needs to learn how to be able to be told no about anything and
Right.
move on in their life without getting offended even.
Right, because, like,
Well, and that consent also moves into the Second Amendment as well when it comes to schools. You kids don't like need to be forced to go to shop class or forced to go to Target Club or stuff like that.
Mhm.
You know what I mean? It should be an elective like most other things. So
But yeah, and there should be many more electives so that kids actually can explore things on their own, actually be able to
including
pursue
sex
things. Well, yeah,
Yes.
yeah.
I mean, sex ed, I think, should be mandatory. I don't care what anybody says. They need to hear it.
Yeah, the only thing that's going to protect
Yeah.
the kid from potential pedos is understanding,
Oh, yeah.
what a penis is, what a vagina is. Not to call it a cookie or your private place or all
I'm
these different
sorry.
things. You know
Right.
what I mean? Like it's one of those things where it's like, well, no wonder the kid got molested by their drunk uncle because
Couldn't
they were
even
calling
describe
all
what
kinds
happened.
of stuff, and the kid
Right.
doesn't know any better. He
Like-
doesn't understand.
Mhm.
Nobody
So-
ever taught them or even showed them that they have bodily autonomy. And part of that,
Right.
Yeah, that it's
going
okay.
back to you asking, do you want a hug or not? That teaches kids that they have the right to say, no, I don't want to be touched.
Right.
Right. And that
Exactly.
the no
Boundaries.
means no.
Right.
And that's
Yes.
okay.
And that's okay.
Right.
Because an
Doesn't have to be
enthusiastic
catastrophic.
yes and a reciprocal yes is a very good thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it also gives you the right to change your mind.
Right.
And that's
Yes.
normal too.
And
Yeah,
it's
absolutely.
easier from that point to extrapolate from that of like, oh, well, if I want the control over my skin suit, I have to respect that the next person controls theirs too.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah.
Had to put this to kids in very blunt manners on more than one occasion of like, oh, you just put your hands on them? Do you want me to hit you? Because I can punch you. And they're like, well, no, don't do that. And I'm like, why? If you
Yeah.
feel like you're entitled to hit them, why can't I hit you? And they're like, well, shit, this is me.
Right.
Well, guess what? You don't have the right to hit them either. You know? And that applies to any form
Goes
of
both
physical
ways.
contact, not just hitting.
Right.
Shanika said, our society is still stuck in the Victorian era. Uncomfortable conversations are prohibited.
Uh-huh.
Oh, that's for sure.
Yeah,
That
big time.
so fucking true.
And that's why we never move anywhere on the race stuff, because people are too afraid to talk about it. It's like, own your shit.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah.
And but getting back to the idea of consent and then of imagining other people and what they think, that becomes the building blocks to teach kids empathy, and empathy and consent go together really well, and that's another component that schools just kind of
gloss over.
maybe they do a little bit, like, oh, imagine yourself as a person in the Middle Ages or a farmer or something like. Sometimes they do that sort of role playing, but it should be a much more constant thing, because in order to have good relationships, we need to be able to imagine what other people think. We need to be able to put ourselves in other people's shoes.
Right.
And
And like, I mean, really, like, they're always so up in arms about like teenage pregnancies and shit like that. It's like, you show that they're like teen mom that are glamorizing it. Why aren't you telling these girls, hey, you can use a condom, you can take a pill, you can wear a patch, you can do a gel, you have all these options, and you can even use more than one of these things at a time.
Right.
And this like ups your odds of not getting pregnant, and then here's the repercussions of what happens if you do get pregnant. Like, besides having a child and all of these things, like, if your parents kick you out of the house, where the fuck are you gonna live? Oh, you're gonna be on a wait list for 8 months before you can get stable housing, but like, what are you gonna do with those 8 months in between? Like, just really throw it out there for them, and like, maybe show them the cost of having a child is $1 million per child, if the child is healthy. If the child is not healthy, it could be millions.
Right. Yeah, it amazes me that there's people that are in parts of the world that are so rural that they really believe that prophylactics are like a sin or something that's naughty or shouldn't be talked about. And yet at the same time, abstinence doesn't work. It's obvious.
No,
so
because it just
you know,
makes it more desirable, because you're being told no. It's like toddlers. You tell them not to do something, they're going to do it. Tell them what you do want them to do. If you do want to have sex, come talk to me first. I will give you condoms. I will take you to the doctor and let you talk to the doctor. I will leave and you can have that conversation on your own. And then we can go to the pharmacy and get X, Y, and Z. Or whatever. Like,
like, dude, my parents were very religious, and they were very much of the frame of mind of like, sex is for when you're married. So thank goodness that I had people in my life, like my cousin's ex-wife, who was only a few years older than me, old enough that, you know, she had, you know, a car and driver's license and stuff. So she would pick me up and take me to the clinic to go get my birth control and condoms. Because she was like, hey, this is fucking important. You need to know what your options are and be safe about this. Because, see, look, your cousin and I have a baby already that I gave birth to at 15 when I was in driver's training. So be smart about it, because this shit's hard, you know? She was very straight up with me about that stuff. You know, here I was hanging out with them all the time. I babysat their son quite frequently. And so I knew exactly how much work it was to take care of a baby, and was like, I don't want that. I don't want that. You know?
But that's just it. Like, my grandma was a nurse, so like, she and I had very extensive conversations when I was growing up, and she's like, you have lots of options, and just know that you can stack things. Like, you know, she was always a big advocate of like, use a hormonal thing and use a condom, use this and that, like, you know. And that was really helpful for me to make informed choices.
It's important. It's important to know how many things really come into play. Like, you know, make sure you get condoms that have naloxone 9 on them to kill the sperm too. You know, on top of your hormonal birth control. And if you're worried because a condom breaks or something, here's the morning after pill. You know, things like
options.
that.
Right.
Just knowing,
you know,
really helps.
I actually have a friend. I won't say who they are or where they are, but they have taken and purchased a large quantity of each of the components that go into the morning after pill. And they have the exact doses and the whole 9 yards, and a pill presser. And they're helping all kinds of women where you know, they're all ready for what kind of legislation might come to these different states. So,
and it's scary awesome. It's scary that it's coming to that, but it does seem like it definitely could come to that in the near future.
And also,
absolutely.
like, they're not, another thing to be careful about too, like, the Plan B pills are only good for a woman that's 150 pounds or less.
That's
if you're over that weight, most people don't know that, you might need to double up or take different doses. But, like, the, you know, more information, right?
Right.
Yep. Yeah. Yeah. Like everything, knowledge is power, and understanding goes a long way. And when it comes to sex and guns, this country doesn't understand the half of it.
No, they really don't.
That's pretty true.
Yeah. But I gotta go. I love you guys.
Yeah, thank you so much. I'm glad you could finally get on the stream. It's been so many near misses. It's glad it finally worked out.
Hell yeah. All power to the people. Thank you guys.
Thanks.
Have a good one.
See you next time.
Night. Love the flags.
Yeah. All right. Well, we got about half the essay left, so I'm hoping we can do a mini speed run here, and see if we can finish it off in time.
Digested food should be inscribed over every hall of learning as a warning to all who do not wish to lose their own personalities and the original sense of judgment, who instead should be content with a large amount of empathy and shallow shells. This may suffice as a recognition of the manifold hindrances placed in a way of an independent mental development of the child. Equally numerous, and not less important, are the difficulties that confront the emotional life of the young. Must not one suppose that parents should be united to children by the most tender and delicate cords? One should suppose it, yet, sad as it may be, it is, nevertheless true, that parents are the first to destroy the inner riches of their children. The scriptures tell us that God created man in his own image, which has by no means proven its success. Parents followed a bad example of their heavenly master. They use every effort to shape and mold the child according to their own image. They tenaciously cling to the idea that the child is...
Yeah. Yes, I think she's right that parents can often be the first ones to destroy that spark of curiosity and learning within their child. It's really sad.
Mm-hmm. Force their own racist or sexist or horrible views on their kids and not encouraging them to ask questions.
Yeah.
Right.
I hate that.
Basically looking at a kid like, I birthed you, how are you not a copy of me?
Right.
Mm-hmm. Like, this isn't a Xerox machine, asshole. You do have to put some effort in.
Right.
merely part of themselves, an idea as false as it is injurious, and which only increases the misunderstanding of the soul of the child, of the necessary consequences of enslavement and subordination thereof. As soon as the first rays of consciousness illuminate the mind and heart of the child, it instinctively begins to compare its own personality with the personality of those about it. How many hard and cold stone cliffs meet its large, wondering gaze? Soon enough it is confronted with the painful reality that it is here only to serve as an inanimate matter for parents and guardians, whose authority alone gives it shape and form. The terrible struggle of the thinking man and women against political, social, and moral conventions owes its origin to the family, where the child is ever compelled to battle against the internal and external use of force. The categorical imperatives, you shall, you must, this is right, this is wrong, this is true, that is false, shower like a violent rain upon the unsophisticated head of the young being, and impress upon its sensibilities that it has to bow before the long-established and hard notions of thoughts and emotions. Yet the latent qualities and instincts seek to assert their own peculiar methods of seeking the foundation of things, of distinguishing between what is commonly called wrong, true, or false. It is...
Sorry, I just had an epiphany.
Go for it.
That anytime I spent with my grandparents, I was not spoken to that way. Like, you must, you will. It was, you can ask questions, you should ask questions. It is okay. And then the whole, like, you know, if people aren't willing to answer you, you need to leave, or you need to get away from them, and we will come get you. Like, everything was very, like, supportive, and, like...
Well, and that's how it should be. That's how I talk to my kids. I very rarely force them to do anything, even if I, you know, I only get to see them once a week when I go over to their house, but when I do, even if they're wrapped up in playing their video games and I really would like to do something with them, I'm never going to force them. I'm not going to be like, you know, turning off their computer or their game device just to force them to spend time with me.
Right.
Because I want them to be able to make their own decisions, and I want them when they are spending time with me to have chosen that.
Right, and to enjoy it.
Yeah.
There's always of the like treat others how you want to be treated.
Right.
Yeah,
If
absolutely.
anything, in that situation, I could see you being like, "Hey, got another controller, so I can hop in and play the game
Yeah.
with you guys too."
Yeah,
Not,
and
oh, you that often pay attention to me because I'm here.
right. I do often try that strategy, and it works, probably at least half the time. I can convince them all to play a video game together or watch a TV show or something like that, and at least we're doing something together that way. So, yeah. All right, moving on.
Is bent upon going its own way, since it is composed of the same nerves, muscles, and blood, even as those who assume to direct its destiny. I fail to understand how parents hope that their children will ever grow up into independent, self-reliant spirits, when they strain every effort to abridge and curtail the various activities of their children, the plus in quality and character which differentiates their offspring from themselves, and by the virtue of which they are eminently equipped carriers of new, invigorating ideas.
And that's the thing. We're such a country of contradictions. We talk about independence and rugged individualism and freedom of thought and speech and all this stuff like that. But when it comes down to it, it seems like, yeah, most parents just want their kids to believe exactly what they believe, to adopt all of the morals and ideas that they themselves hold. And they push with all their might to make sure that happens.
That's
It doesn't line up.
why so many of them use religion as that tool, because there's even verses for that, like train a child up in the way they should go, and when they are an adult, they will not depart from it. And it's like, that's what you thought.
Right?
Like, but they really
Nice.
try to indoctrinate. Whether they're religious or not, a lot of parents try to indoctrinate
Oh, yeah.
whatever it is that their worldview is. They want to impose that on their kid. And again, pretend like their pussy was a Xerox machine.
Yeah, so it's just like, but where's the disconnect then? Where's that cognitive dissonance coming in where they can say, I'm a free thinker, I don't follow the crowd, I don't listen to what they say on CNN or Fox News or anything like that. But my children
you'd better.
shouldn't do any of that. So, yeah, exactly. How does that happen? How do we hold those two things in our head at the same time as a nation? It just
We're hypocritical.
right, but why don't
Yeah.
we see that and do different?
Because we
Because
don't want
it's
to
fucking
acknowledge the negativity.
performative.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think that's probably it.
Like, my family
It's all to
is...
convince you.
Yeah. Like, my mom and stepdad are very conservative. My mom can handle me better, but, like, my stepdad straight up won't talk. He won't come in our house.
Yeah, he won't come on our house because we
With
have,
the BLM
we
thing in
have a
the
Black
window.
Lives Matter sign in our window. So he just won't even come in.
Damn, he's soft.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a special level.
Does he not grasp the concept? I mean, it literally...
Certainly
this
not.
seems to go through many fucking people's heads, especially the All Lives Matter crew, aren't grasping that all lives can't matter until Black lives, brown lives, red lives matter as much as white ones do.
Right.
When people of color are treated as if their life is fucking disposable, we have a goddamn problem.
Right.
Right.
Yeah, they refuse to understand. They're always like, oh, are you saying Black Lives Matter more than other lives? And like, no, that's not the idea at
No,
all.
you ignorant fuck.
It's that no one needs to say that white lives matter or male lives matter, because they obviously do. It is reflected in every concentration of power in our entire society. The Senate is mostly white guys. The House of Representatives, mostly white guys, especially through history. Our presidency has been held by all but one white guy has been our president. And vice presidential candidates, for that matter, too, have been almost entirely white guys. Every place you look, every Fortune 500 CEO or board of directors, way dominated by males. So there's no reason to ever need to say white lives matter, because that's never been in question. It's only ever been in question that Black lives or brown lives or Native lives or any other lives
That just sounds very
that are
like,
not white.
KKKE.
What?
White lives matter.
Well, of course it is.
I mean,
and really that's what they want to say. When they're saying all lives matter, that's what they really want to say is white lives matter more.
It just feels gross. Like, how can you sit there and talk that way? But they just don't want to see it.
Because they have, and for a lot of them, especially the ones that are not in, they're not business owners or high-powered people, they see it as a threat to their position, their already precarious position. They see that if anyone gets more power, that could mean that I get less, and that my little bit of stability and comfort could be threatened.
So then why don't they unite more against their employers? Because that's the true power struggle, is it not?
Yeah, absolutely. That is the reaction to all this stuff, but instead they
No, it's like, oh, we have to pin it on the boogeyman. Like, there is no, your boss is the boogeyman.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we don't have to dream up shadowy cabals that pull the strings behind the curtains.
Right, we can see
it. People do it in public.
It's the danger that's right in front of your face that's actually the damn problem. It's the person you've never met that signs your paychecks. That is the problem. That is where it all comes down from.
Yep, and well said, Bread Menace Dragon, who says that in the corporate oligarchy, you are not meant to be an individual. Have thoughts of your own. They want drones and clones. Yeah, absolutely.
They should be scared.
Yeah, the Matrix. Right, unplug. You want the fucking red pill or the blue pill?
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, it's too bad that MGTOWs and other sort of Meninist groups have co-opted and ruined the term red pill.
Speaking of those special men's groups, you know what I think needs to happen? I think
we're not going to violate TOS in the thing that needs to happen, are we?
No.
Okay, good. Just checking. You tend to.
I don't
You're pretty angry.
Well, I am angry. I'm a woman.
And say things that could be construed as a threat. That's all.
It's not a threat.
Okay, go ahead.
So, like, with all those special groups, right, and this whole Roe v. Wade thing, and, like, things only seem to get done when there's violence or more aggressive forms of protest. Yeah. Besides
outside of the law.
Right. What if women just go into the streets and free bleed? Yeah. Flocks and flocks of women just free bleed all over the place.
I mean,
is that going to be enough? Is it going to freak them out?
If only our cycles were all in sync, like some of these ignorant fuckers think.
I mean, you get enough women running in the same circles, they sync up eventually anyway.
I mean, you could just have a permanent Occupy style protest where it's women cycling through literally and figuratively.
Yeah.
Yeah, but it's different when you're around somebody enough for your cycles to sync up versus like. I was making that joke because I have recently seen, since you don't like the shortened term, mind if I just spell it out? The involuntary celibates fucking saying, don't all women have their period at the same time at the full moon?
Yeah.
Huh?
Yeah.
Like,
what? But to be clear, it's not that I don't like the term. I think it's just fine. It's just that Twitch doesn't like the term. Not that we're ever likely to get struck, but, just... one of those many words that are not allowed, like the C word that a restaurant is named after that ends in barrel. Yeah, cookies. That's what I meant to say. You're not allowed to call anyone the C word on Twitch, otherwise you can get banned.
Gee, look what Twitch is protecting.
Exactly. Right. Yeah. Like you can say the R word all day long. You can have an entire stream where you just repeat.
That just makes me angry.
You are an R word. You are an R word. Again and again and again, and Twitch will do nothing about it. But you call a white person a pretty innocuous term that no one will ever get offended by, and that's grounds to take down your entire channel.
Right. You cheese it.
Yep.
Get out.
Right. Get creative with it. Like, I don't know, on Facebook, I tend to avoid their AI catching that shit by, doing different interpretations of it. Of like
Right.
in that case, I would probably be like you, unleavened toasted wafer. You know, that gets the point across.
Oh,
I
I
love
did
I
it.
ain't gonna get that.
You unloving toasted wafer. Oh, that's delightful. I love you. That's great.
I love you too.
I'm gonna put that in my pocket for later.
And like where Facebook doesn't even like you saying the color white followed by the word people, I typically put in there like, okay, the pigmently challenged. I don't fucking catch that.
Yeah. That's great. I like to use Pedialyte drinker. That's one of my favorite ones.
Oh yeah.
Nice.
Instead of child harassment. Yeah.
Child toucher.
Yeah.
Oh, fine.
You
Pedialyte
never know, because Twitch is purposely vague about their terms anyway, just so they can kind of like
Sure. I'm sorry.
snatch and grab whoever they don't like. But yeah. So
You should like this man. He's a good guy.
thanks. All right. Well, let's see if we can finish up the end.
A young delicate tree that is being clipped and cut by the gardener in order to give it an artificial form will never reach the majestic height and the beauty as one allowed to grow in nature and freedom.
That's
When
a
the
good
child
metaphor.
reaches
I like
adolescence, it meets, added to the home and school restrictions, with a vast amount of hard traditions of social morality. The cravings of love and sex are met with absolute ignorance by the majority of parents, who consider it as something indecent and improper, something disgraceful, almost criminal, to be suppressed and fought like some terrible disease. The love and tender feelings in the young plant are turned into vulgarity and coarseness through the stupidity of those surrounding it, so that everything fine and beautiful is either crushed altogether or hidden in the innermost depths as a great sin that dares not face the light. What is more astonishing is the fact that parents will strip themselves of everything, will sacrifice everything for the physical well-being of their child, will wake nights and stand in fear and agony before some physical ailment of their beloved one, but will remain cold and indifferent without the slightest understanding before the soul cravings and the yearnings of their child, neither hearing nor wishing to hear the loud knocking of the young spirit that demands recognition. On the contrary,
that is really profound and true.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, those same parents that will insist their children think a very particular way, yeah, they will stand up for them physically, but they're never going to have that same sort of or take that same sort of guardianship over their emotional well-being.
Mm-hmm.
Only their physical. That's a good insight.
That's because we're trained to not acknowledge or not deal with emotions, and we end up with emotionally constipated adults.
Mm-hmm.
That don't know how to deal with feelings, things. I mean,
Yeah. So again, why emotions should be talked about a lot in school.
right. And like,
Oh, looks like Shanika.
Hello.
Hello, how are you?
Hey, how y'all doing?
Good.
how are you?
Hey, I'm doing good. I'm loving this stream, and I was like, I had to hop on because when y'all started talking about psychology, I couldn't help myself.
Yeah, all right.
Hell yeah.
So my little tidbit to add is that like one crazy thing about me is that I can remember a lot of stuff from childhood, and I'm actually trying to, even if it's difficult. And one of the things that I dug up not too long ago was how every parent pretty much thinks they're doing their kid a favor by killing their childlike hope. But it's not just like we have the understanding of like, oh, it's the matrix, it's the society, it's the structure, but that is, as someone has said, I mean, it's global, but it's also local. And the way that it hits you locally is like parents think that they're doing their kid a huge favor by introducing them to the worst of all that could possibly happen.
That's right.
Like, and if you think back a little bit in the idea of like anthropologically like developing, going from Homo erectus to Homo sapiens, like we kind of don't have, like we have the bigger brain, but the world now is way easier. So instead of us like navigating, like killing animals and hunting and fishing and growing crops, which hopefully we can continue to do one day, like we get into anxiety, our minds are twisted around in like nihilism, existentialism, philosophy, And, you know, then you have like somebody who has all the money in the world and still wants to, you know, delete themselves. So, I mean, the starting point of just being a human being is already corrupted because within the family, like, and I'm not talking about like dysfunctional families. Like, I'm not talking about, you know, one particular group or one particular whatever. um Obviously I tend to, you know, repeat how like mine was like pretty severe, but you don't even have to be like totally quote unquote abused to receive this sort of like indoctrination into life being, you know, there's just tons of things that people saddle their kids with, and they think they're helping. And the number one thing is like, okay, I want my kid to have it better than I had, or I want my kid to. I don't have kids, so I probably am more critical of like parents because of my experiences and observations. But yeah, like they want to help the kid by introducing to them all the possible things that could go wrong, instead of thinking, okay, this is a clean slate, this is a new person that, you know, has just occurred. And there's not a lot of people putting a lot of thought into really like raising their kids in like what you guys are talking about right now. A lot of people seem to, from what I could tell, just, I mean, my observation and just whatever, it's just like nobody's thinking that hard about it. And then there's a lot of believiology, like I keep using that word, whether it's religion or something that is keeping you from wanting to know what reality is. Like it's more of a virtue, like faith, thinking of faith as a virtue, or thinking of compliance as a virtue, when in fact every single thing that you get taught when you're a kid is like 9 out of 10 of it is wrong. So yeah, that's my piece.
Yeah, thank you very much for that. That's
Yeah.
I think there's a lot of truth to that. You know, there's common sayings throughout childhood, like, you know, life's not fair, and you know, when you get to the real world, you'll understand, and like all these ways that you're right. Parents they think they're helping, but really they're just breaking that childlike wonder and robbing children of their childhood. Really.
Yeah.
Like, I hate that phrasing of like, life's not fair.
Oh yeah.
Well, why the fuck isn't it?
Yeah.
What can we do to make it so that it is fair?
Yeah.
So that it is better.
Right.
Yeah.
Not everybody starts in the same spot. Why don't we shift that?
Yeah. Like you guys,
Absolutely.
like, I mean,
They're
I'm just
literally
enamored with you guys because that's what y'all are doing, literally.
It's setting kids up to have a negative worldview right off the fucking bat. I mean, it's one thing to be honest with kids when they're actually mature enough to have those conversations about how fucked up the world really is. It's another thing to not even at least balance that with, here's all the beautiful things, here's all of the possibilities,
Right.
you know?
Yeah.
Here's what you can do to change this shit and make this place better.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. Like, do
Things
you
that
guys
we-
know about neuroplasticity? I don't know if I like went on a huge rant about it before.
A little bit, yeah.
So it seems like if somebody's not, what's the word, typical, not neurotypical, or they have trauma, or they have,
Neurodivergent.
say again.
Neurodivergent.
Yeah, exactly. Thank you.
Yeah.
And so if somebody's neurodivergent, like, then we're talking about the brain. Then we're talking about, like, if somebody's depressed, then we're talking about mental health. If somebody is not doing well at school, then we're talking about study skills. So it's sort of like, you could have, you know, somebody could have given the kid all of this up front, but nobody's like, I don't want to say nobody, but it's not, you know, it's not cool to try hard.
common, yeah.
It's not cool to excel. And that's another thing too, where like when you're talking about, who's your author, Emma
Goldman.
Yeah. Starting off with like the part about education. Yeah, there's a certain like prestige given to education, but there's not a prestige given to wisdom. And it's the difference between knowledge and wisdom. You can accumulate a lot of facts, you know, and I'm not trying to like, you know, this theory, you know, but I'm just saying, like, outside of theory, this is important. Like, this is
That's only
actually
part of it, yeah.
wisdom, you know. But knowledge, like when you're in an argument with somebody and they pop out some stupid, they've memorized tons of talking points, or they're talking about like some stupid not percentage. What's the word? Percentage.
Statistic?
Yes. Yeah. So, but they're applying it wrongly, or they don't understand the depth of,
Right.
or they don't understand the flaws in the study that was done.
Right.
So yeah.
Yeah.
A lot of it is the education at home and at school is fucking lacking what's needed to connect those two of the knowledge and the wisdom, and that is love, empathy, ethics, logic, being able to bring those things together. And
Yeah.
how can you only feed one facet and not all of the others that really need to come into play for somebody to even be able to deal with life on life's terms, to be able to understand how they're happening in the world around them,
Yeah.
and understand the power that is in that and what you're creating around you. What
Yeah.
dynamics are you? What are you
Exactly.
working toward?
You're speaking
It's
to you're
short change.
speaking of philosophy. You're speaking of philosophy, and not just in like the classical sense, but like however you wanted to take it. Like one of my favorite is once again I can see the person's face, but I can't say their name. He's a lighter skinned guy, kind of curly hair. He wrote The Tipping Point.
Malcolm Gladwell.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you have a lot of modern philosophers that are giving you some viewpoints, and a lot of what is probably needed going forward would be like the meta. What, like Zen was saying, like how do you tie that together? Like your philosophy would be, okay, how do I apply this knowledge? Or pragmatism, or it doesn't have to be stoicism, even though I love stoicism, obviously, Seneca, or it could be something else, but it has to be applicable to the situation at hand. But what Boliviology does, and the fact that you grow up in a society where you're taught about God, or you at least hear about God, and I'm not trying to come against people who are believers, but I think that it's very intrusive to grow up assuming that there's a God and then later having to figure out whether you believe that or not. And
Right.
then encounter people who, there are people who believe that when they meet you, they're meeting your whole race. Or they're
Yeah.
you know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
they wanna like they wanna hold you accountable for everything that your race did. That's the reason why, I mean, it's illogical to come at one white guy who you don't know if he's racist or not. It's illogical to come at a black woman. You don't know if she's, ghetto or not. I mean, obviously I'm applying stereotypes at will. But yeah, I
No,
mean,
but you're totally right.
you
And
know,
and it's funny how those sorts of people, everyone of their race gets to be an individual, no matter what happens, no matter how good or bad someone does is. They're always doing it for individual reasons. But every other race, they're just lumped in together. So if one person does a bad thing, that's reflective of the entire race. If
so
some,
so you remember what I was talking about anthropology? So it's
uh-huh.
almost like, oh, I know you got to get back to the book. I just want to say this real quick.
Sure, go
So
ahead.
remembering that we have these big old brains. We started off, we just had like what they call the lizard brain, and back there just was a little
Yeah,
bit,
yeah.
and then it grew and all that type of stuff. So you know that. So we have pretty much too much equipment. That's the reason why like TikTok or just, the a lot of gaming or getting addicted to video games or doing something that is like, you have a lot of brain power. I mean, you got a good machine going,
Yeah.
that we've all evolved into. But, there's a concerted effort to make sure we don't use it, you know. So yeah, the meta and the
Absolutely.
connections between things is so important. The little
Okay.
details, and whether or not like you actually um produce, as in like, present, practice, produce. Like you're presented with an idea, you're practicing the skill, and you produce and you actually learn it. Like that's the essence of learning. But we're not taught that way in school. It's
Not
just
at
sort of like
all.
to recite so much data. Yeah,
That's right.
you
Just
know.
knowledge in, that same knowledge back out, and that's all they do.
And you instantaneously
Right.
grow like
Not awareness.
distrustful of teachers and distrustful of school and distrustful of everything. And then when you go and try to apply something, you don't know anything. Like you graduate from high school and now you have to actually learn how to live, and you weren't taught that. I don't think that's like on accident either.
Oh
Right.
no, yeah, because it serves the people in power so well that yeah, you're probably right that it is not an accident because that's exactly how they want it. They don't want us questioning things or
Yep.
thinking that we have control or any of that.
It's such a dangerous thing too, because like, I mean, I've spent a lot of time working in schools and that, and like the students, if they even get a chance to debate something,
Yeah.
that time is cut so short, and it's like you have 1 hour.
Yeah.
It's like, but they could go on all day. Why not let them?
Yeah.
Why not
Yeah.
carve this time out? Because
not
that would
nurture
show
that?
true understanding, to be able to converse with others and try to talk it from both angles. It's like when you learn a new skill as a person, they always say like the way you know you've truly come to understand something is you can show it to someone else.
Right.
True. Yeah.
And then they understand it.
Yeah. Yeah. If you
That's
can apply it
something
right.
to
And then you
experience
pointed
in
out, you made a
college.
really good point too, that intellectual curiosity is squashed, but you get recess, which I'm not mad at recess, but you know, like the idea of games, the idea of playtime. Like I told you before, I'm probably a very boring person most of the time because I'm like just trying to struggle to survive or whatever. But like in school, you're encouraged to, you know, play and be creative and draw and do things like that, and that's the place where you get to put your creativity into like, you know, fun. And you look at other countries and what their standards are for learning, you know, teaching their kids, and you look at us, it's like, I mean, it's worldwide known that Americans are, quote, stupid, you know what I mean? Like we're known for being stupid, we're known for being airheads just all over the world. Like that's our image. So
Which is embarrassing.
Dumb Americans. Yeah.
It makes me nervous to travel the world.
Yeah.
They're like, hi, I'm stupid. I just got here. What's up?
Yeah. Yeah. And we're always like
Well, I
looking at
mean,
the surface of
American
things
idiot.
too. So I'm sorry, go ahead.
Oh, just saying, like, don't mind me, the American idiot. Hi, you know.
Yeah.
The world sees us because that wisdom is fucking missing, and everything to connect that with anything you might have even absorbed from the book. You know, like it goes back to, you know, like Nate is saying there in the comments of like the rote memorization and not critical thinking, not application, not any kind of real life skills. Anything to go along with it. So, you know, even if some of the knowledge from the book sticks, and not all of it will, because that's not a stimulating way to learn,
Yeah.
then you don't even know what the fuck to do with it. And the rest of the world is going, what the fuck are you doing?
Like being able to recite the idea that Christopher Columbus discovered America in 1492 is not going to help you get a job. It's not going to help you learn how to, you know, budget. And then, you know, I keep pointing out the fact that we have access to so much technology, access to the internet. I mean, somebody could literally go on Udemy or Coursera or something and teach themselves something or learn. Or I mean, you just have endless, you know, and nobody really like, that's not a thing. I mean, people are probably doing it. You guys are doing it. I like to do that. I'm learning that there are more people that are into this type of stuff. But from what I've seen, it's not popular to sit there and just try to learn and understand stuff. This is like the most boring topic in the world, but it's great for me. I love it, but it's the most boring thing to most people, I'm saying, Americans.
Yeah.
Because learning sucks.
Unfortunately. Yeah, well, yeah, we've been, you know, conditioned to hate learning. That's part of the school process, too. Yeah.
And hate teachers.
We have total fucking morons out there like Kid Rock who go around bragging about not having read any books since they were in school, and it's like, that's not a bragging point. What are you doing? You know? And people are like, yeah, I love Kid Rock.
Oh my God.
It's like, oh, fuck.
Cult of personality, yep.
Yeah, that's true.
Right.
That. People are too consumed with what is entertaining instead of anything that might actually stimulate their fucking mind.
And because do you remember when, like, I mean, I keep talking about trauma and childhood and stuff, but does anybody remember, like, it seems like there was a period of time when that there was a joke kind of going around maybe 10 years ago, like, I was abused as a child. And then so when certain actors, like maybe Roseanne Barr, different people came out and started talking about their childhood abuse, they were made fun of and like torn to bits in the media. I mean, it's not, you know, it's not something that people want to hear or talk about. And even if it's not abuse. I mean, even talking about childhood, it's like, oh, that was so long ago. Okay, your
Right.
childhood was like 30 years ago, but you're still talking about, topics that happened 300, 400 years ago that matter, like make it make sense.
Right.
So it's, anybody who, people just they don't want to be uncomfortable.
Yeah,
They're looking
that's
for
for sure.
comfort, and the society created anxiety. Then it's selling you, everything to cure your anxiety, like a dependence on a chemical or whatever,
Hmm.
or habit or fun.
Yeah, that's how you commodify everything. But sorry to cut in for everybody, but I do want to get through these last few minutes. I think I'm just going to let it play until the end. We got 5 minutes to go, and then we can come up with some ideas afterward. What?
Nothing.
I'm not trying to cut you off. I gotta.
Just
I want to get through this whole.
Listen, just because you're a white man and you're
Oh my god. Yeah, that's what I'm doing. I'm pulling my white
all
man
the
card.
time.
Anyway, here we go.
Contrary, they will stifle the beautiful voice of spring, or a new life of beauty and splendor of love. They will put the long, lean finger of authority upon the tender throat, and not allow vent to the silvery song of the individual growth, or the beauty of character, of the strength of love and human relation, which alone make life worth living. And yet these parents imagine that they mean best for the child, and for aught I know, some really do. But their best means absolute death and decay to the bud in the making. After all, they are but imitating their own masters in state, commercial, social, and moral affairs, by forcibly suppressing every independent attempt to analyse the ills of society, and every sincere effort towards the abolition of these ills. Never able to grasp the eternal truth that every method they employ serves as the greatest impetus to bring forth a greater longing for freedom, and a deeper zeal to fight for it. That compulsion is bound to awaken resistance. Every parent and teacher ought to know. Great surprise is being expressed over the fact that the majority of children of radical parents are either altogether opposed to the ideas of the latter, many of them moving along the old antiquated paths, or that they are indifferent to the new thoughts and teachings of social regeneration. And yet there is nothing unusual in that. Radical parents, though emancipated from the belief of ownership in the human soul, still cling tenaciously to the notion that they own the child, and that they have the right to exercise their authority over it. So they set out to mould and form the child according to their own conception of what is right and wrong, forcing their ideas upon it with the same vehemence that the average Catholic parent uses. And with the latter, they hold out the necessity before the young to do as I tell you, and not as I do. But the impressionable mind of the child realizes early enough that the lives of their parents are in contradiction to the ideas they represent.
Phrase.
That like the good Christian who fervently prays on Sunday, yet continues to break the Lord's commands the rest of the week, the radical parent arraigns God, priesthood, church, government, domestic authority, yet continues to adjust himself to the condition he abhors. Just so, the free-thought parent can proudly boast that his son of 4 will recognize the picture of Thomas Paine or Ingersoll, or that he knows that the idea of God is stupid, or that the social democratic father can point to his little girl of 6 and say, "Who wrote the Capital, dearie? Karl Marx, pa!" Or that the anarchistic mother can make it known that her daughter's name is Louise Michel, Sofia Perovskaya, or that she can recite the revolutionary poems of Herweg, Freilegraf, or Shelley, and that she will point out the faces of Spencer, Bakunin, and Moses Harman almost anywhere. These aren't by no means exaggerations, they are sad facts that I have met in my experience with radical parents. What are the results of such methods of biasing the mind? The following is the consequence, and not very infrequent either. The child being fed on one-sided set and fixed ideas soon grows weary of rehashing the beliefs of its parents, and it sets out in a quest of new sensations, no matter how inferior or shallow the new experience may be. The human mind cannot endure sameness and monotony, so it happens that the boy or girl, overfed on Thomas Paine, will land in the arms of the church. Or they will vote for imperialism only to escape the drag of economic determinism and scientific socialism. Or that they open a shirt-waist factory and cling to their right of accumulating property, only to find relief from the old-fashioned communism of their father. Or that the girl will marry the next best man, provided he can make a living, only to run away with the everlasting talk on variety. Such a condition of affairs may be very painful to the parents who wish their children to follow in their path, yet I look upon them as very refreshing and encouraging psychological forces. They are the greatest guarantee that the independent mind, at least, will always resist every external and foreign force exercised over the human heart and head. Some will ask, what about weak natures? Must they not be protected? Yes, but to be able to do that, it will be necessary to realize that education of children is not synonymous with herd-like drilling and training. If education should really mean anything at all, it must insist upon the free growth and development of the innate forces and tendencies of the child. In this way alone, we can hope for the free individual, and eventually also a free community, which shall make interference and coercion of human growth impossible.
All right, we made it.
That was good. That was good. Resistance, subversive, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Good stuff.
I like how she called out even radical parents at the end there. Like it's not enough to just indoctrinate them with stuff just because it's better theory. You got to actually let them think for themselves, yeah, and nurture their love of learning in general. Like that's truly the radical form of parenting.
Right? Like, even, when it comes to, political lines and stuff, well, guess what? You need to not only teach them your own, but you need to teach them the other ones too, so they can see the differences between them. And
Absolutely.
in conjunction with that, teach them ethics and logic to be able to navigate those things with, so they understand why certain political perspectives are ethical and certain ones are not.
Mhm.
And, same for if it's a sociological perspective, same for if it's a philosophical perspective, that needs to be applied to all those things. If you don't even have that roadmap of ethics to go by and understand what is a good action, what is a bad action, what falls on a slippery slope, things like that, then how the fuck are you going to figure out what is actually good and bad, what you actually agree with, what sits right with you?
Right.
Did they co-opt freedom recently with it means blurting out whatever comes to your mind, or I feel it deep down in my gut and my fifis, and the freedom of like I create my own reality kind of thing is happening. It's like,
yes.
so the perspective, like if you were to draw a picture of like the ego self just looking around at the world and just perceiving, and then the perspective being like some sort of lens that just grows and grows and grows, like uncontrollably. It just never stops, to the point where a person could be an old fool, so to speak, and they're like, they've never left their neighborhood, or they've never traveled, or they haven't done whatever. I mean, no disrespect to those who haven't, but I mean, if their thinking is I'm so sure of something, it's because of something that they saw on TV. Like, quick story, my mom actually thought that I was out partying all the time when I was in college, and I kept telling her, no, I have to study, what are you talking about? And she insisted that she probably saw, there's a movie, there's a few movies and TV shows that show, teenagers partying in college. That's probably what she saw, because she would watch TV all the time. Same thing when she thought that, Cleopatra, she saw the movie Cleopatra with Elizabeth Taylor or whatever, and thought that she didn't believe that Egypt was in Africa. Like, she couldn't conceive of there being dark-skinned people in Egypt, and how could that be possible? So these are like, I mean, like I think I said before, 20 years ago or whenever, they were talking about the boob tube and kill your TV, and and then people who just stayed to just sit and absorb the sort of subconscious programming of how things are, like as if it was, the reality. And then reality TV came because the thirst and the desire for that type of titillation, and it can go in like an infinite number of directions, and there's definitely a market for it, and people are sure happy to pay money to be titillated and distracted and everything like that. I mean, watch that show Mad Men, but nobody's really like wanting to be like, okay, how do I make a budget? Boring as hell, triggering. You'll sit there and you'll like have tons of memories about not having enough money. How do I actually get the laundry done without having a breakdown about having to, remember doing the laundry when I was a kid as a, or cleaning as a punishment? How do I actually like get, a job, or the society and economy is bad? How do I survive this? You know what I mean? And most people are like just picking whatever drug of choice or whatever titillation or distraction of choice and getting deeper into it, because they've all been given permission to be free and subversive. So the easiest thing is just to go directly into whatever your perception is and just grow it out of control, instead of like, no, you're free to figure out how to better your life, how to heal, how to be creative, and all those things that like what we're talking about here is like I use the word socialism and communism interchangeably, so maybe I don't really understand some of the concepts.
No, that's fine.
Basically, anybody calling me comrade, I get along with. Anybody saying mutual aid, anybody saying, let's share, let's create our community of people that's just cool, just trying to respect one one another and make the world better. You know, that's a different perspective. That's not being sold to you on TV.
Yeah, oh, that's for sure. Yeah. Yeah, I like a lot what you were saying about how people just use TV and other sort of media as drugs. And I would say that a big part of that, like a big reason for that, is that people are just battered down so much in their daily lives, just going to work, giving all of their body and their mind to enrich other people, that at the end of the day, they both don't have the mental bandwidth anymore for anything more than just like very surface level TV.
Who said they're alienated from their product? What was that? I remember.
Oh yeah. Marx talks about that
there we
a lot.
go.
Alienation from.
I know.
Yeah,
around
and
there.
I think that has psychological effects on people.
That's
and,
the thing. Yeah.
So both, they don't have capacity for much more than that, because they're just trying to struggle to survive. But then also, they're looking for a painkiller and a way to escape the reality that they don't feel that they have much control over.
When you literally cannot afford and don't have enough time off of work to do a real vacation, getting lost in a fucking TV show is, the closest mental vacation you can at least get to when you get out of work. Drinking a beer, watching a TV show that at least gets your fucking head out of your own space and experience.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
It's a tool for placation.
Yep.
It's the Soma. It's the George Orwell 1984 Soma, distributed in 1,000 different flavors in a buffet table.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
It feeds into that mental health crisis that I think COVID has now exacerbated.
Yeah.
It's just pushing people over the edge. I mean, I'm guilty of it. If I had a bad enough day at work, it was drag queen central when I got home.
Mm-hmm.
It'd be like hours and hours of Drag Race just to escape it and not have to use any more of my mental bandwidth.
Yeah, definitely. I'm guilty of it too. I will watch something, or when I was working, I used to watch something, plop out in front. I used to have that weird I'm sitting there and I can't move and I'm just stuck to the TV kind of thing every night.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Right. Well, we're all guilty of it because we've all been conditioned to that. That's your escape to unwind at the end of the day. I'm guilty of it too. Granted, I don't watch TV programming. I don't have regular network TV access or anything. I just use a streaming service so I can just watch what I want.
Yeah, us too.
I have fucking commercials and whatnot, but that is still one of the ways that I unwind at night. I want to shut my fucking brain off and just enjoy a good story.
Right.
But it's healthy. It's we have to pick our poison, so to speak, but we're all trying to pick the best thing that the healthy option. At least you're watching something educational or that has theory and uplifting. Maybe that'd be good.
That's the reason that Hassan Piker is probably the person that I watch more than any other in terms of leftist content creators, because he does mix in that entertainment with the theory and the actual ideas and stuff like that. So
does he have the his profile picture is Stalin in red, right? That guy, the YouTube guy, or somebody else?
No, I don't think he has Stalin in his profile picture.
Oh, okay.
Hasanabi is his channel. So,
oh, okay.
Yeah.
I'm thinking of somebody different with a okay.
Yeah.
Cool.
All right. Well, I think this is probably a good place to leave it. I really enjoyed this conversation, though. Thank you all for coming. Thanks to everyone who was on the show earlier. I really like this sort of people coming in and out sort of thing, and people contributing stuff when they can, and then getting in and out. And I like this. I hope to do a lot more of this going forward.
I just want to say thank you, Zen, for inviting me, and just thank you for just opening up a window for me to be not to jump out of, but to jump into. Online and stuff is cool.
Yeah.
Well, thank you for joining us. Dude, we've been loving having
Yeah.
your input, you
Yeah,
know?
absolutely. It's been great.
Thank
Yeah.
you. It was fun.
Definitely hope to have you on in future streams. Are you on Facebook, Shanika, at all?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, if you can find me, send me a friend request, and I'll put you in the group chat for all the guests for this show too.
Oh, that's cool. Okay. Yeah, I'll do that.
Same.
Cool.
You know what? We need to do that for head theory too.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely.
Say that again. You said head theory?
Head
Yeah.
theory.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
Remember me telling you about the episodes that Amanda and I do on Thursday nights that's revolving around like psychiatry and psychedelics and things like that and healing?
Two thumbs up.
Please join us for that.
Yes.
I'm ready. Yeah.
Anytime.
Next time when you invite me,
Yeah.
I'm gonna jump directly in. I don't care if I'm in a bathrobe or I'm half asleep.
Yeah.
I don't care.
All
Tag me in,
Right on.
coach.
I'm in my jammies right now. It doesn't
Yeah.
matter.
Yeah.
All are welcome. All states.
Yeah.
That's right.
I barely
Yeah.
managed to button up my shirt and wipe my eyes to come on. So I don't care. I love the authenticity. This
Yeah.
is refreshing. Y'all are refreshing.
Oh,
Can
thank
I
you
say
so
one
much.
little thing?
Yeah, go for it.
I created a group. Like, obviously I'm like big on mental health and sharing my story and trying to help people and trying to like network and just being like, hey, peer support, stuff like that. I had created a group and I was like sharing a lot of stuff about stoicism and stuff like that. And I was sharing on my Facebook page. And then I stopped because I didn't think that, like, I didn't know whether or not the audience or the people that were checking it out or whether it was helping or not. And then I started going through like way too many mental health crises and had to like focus. And it's like, I just want to say I'm very grateful because y'all are doing the thing that, I was trying to do in my little way. But it's nice to be the recipient of some information, some, confirmation of like, okay, it's other people that, think like you do. So I'm not isolated anymore.
That's
I'm not,
right. Yeah.
We're
We're out there. Your people are out there. So.
Yeah.
You should keep sharing because you know what? It's your page. You should do with it what you want to do. And if they don't like it, they can get out.
Well, here's the thing. My name. Okay, so I don't have like an ego like Kanye, but I probably remember I'm like separated from my family. Just been on my own by myself, going through a lot of stuff until recently. So I think of myself as like I'm trying to be a philosopher and give some ideas. So my name is Seneca Rhetoricia, and I claim to be like Seneca, like giving some kind of like thoughts the way that Seneca would write these letters, because he was writing letters to the emperor and just like, this is what you need to do, you need to make sure your health is right, you need to take a cold bath, and you do this and that, this is what you need to think about things. And it's like I feel like I'm like thinking about stuff, getting an idea and then sharing it and writing it. But what happens is people automatically challenge me because number one, I'm a Black woman, claiming the name of a white man, so that makes everybody mad. And then number two, I've got like my dead cockroach and my black flag, so I look, aggressive as hell. And so I have two profiles, and the other one is more like soft and relaxed. So I need to, probably fix my approach if I were going to do that. It's very difficult, and I run into a lot of triggering, and I run into a lot of people challenging what I'm saying. Like, even if I'm venting about my own life, I remember, George Floyd got murdered, and I vented a little bit about my own life, and people were like offended that they were like, get back to the, you know what I mean? Like people who never commented or anything. And then I realized that I will do lives. And if I did makeup, like right now, I'm purposely, non-made up. I would put on makeup. I would get, people would click on it and, hear me sing or watch and listen to what I was saying and interact. If I did a live and I didn't have makeup on, like I just, nobody watched it. So the cult of image or whatever is too much for me to handle. I can't, perform and be a trained sailor and do tricks. I can write, I can talk, but I don't want to do it on my Facebook page where I'm a sitting duck getting attacked. But I do want to contribute to y'all. I do want to help y'all with y'all, like, graphic design or just do different stuff like volunteer.
That's awesome.
And try to help and stuff like that.
Well, I love having you on. So yeah, you're welcome anytime.
You're always welcome here. Always.
Thank you. I'm
makeup
long-winded.
or
That's
not.
why I call myself a rhetorician. I'm long-winded. I can't stop talking.
No,
So
it's all interesting stuff. So yeah, that's
It's
great.
thank you
important
very much.
stuff. Lots of perspectives. It's good to hear it from lots of different people that have lots of different lived experiences, but we're all coming together under this common goal of like better for everyone.
Mm-hmm.
See, that's the thing. See, here I go. When I was little, okay, I was the only child and I was little. Every few years, I would be thinking like, okay, shouldn't we like try to figure things out? Like, shouldn't we like, and I wasn't, I was more on the nerdy side all the time because I was trying to understand things and learn things on my own.
Mm-hmm.
And now y'all are doing that. And it's just sort of like, it's kind of freaking me out because like now this is happening right now and it's like awesome. So I was trying not to cry because y'all are lovely.
Oh,
Y'all are
So
wonderful.
are you.
that's so sweet. Definitely glad
We
to
love
have
having
you.
you.
Definitely
And-
found your tribe of fellow nerdy people who love
There you go.
continuing
That's right.
education.
So then I say, Scout's honor, right?
Yeah. And I just shouted them out in the chat, but Bread Crochets, who is in the chat also, another great channel to follow. They're always doing like crocheting of really cool stuff, but then at the same time they listen to theory, so it's another good theory channel to check out. So
Cool. Yeah, I'm gonna tap in. I'm gonna get it. I'm gonna connect with everybody.
yeah.
I'm gonna work on that.
All right. Well, thank you. Should I call you Seneca or should I call you Sharika? Which do you prefer?
Technically, I mean, there's one of me, but there's kind of 5 of me, so I don't really know at what time. You could just whatever works for you. I don't care.
All right. Well, thank you so much for being on. Thank you, Trisha, for being on. Thanks for everyone earlier who was on. And yeah, hopefully see you all tomorrow night for Head Theory. You guys are doing that, right? You
Yeah.
doing it tomorrow? All right.
It's important.
All
Cool.
right. Have a good night, y'all.
Same time.
Bye. Yeah.
Bye.
Sweet. All right. See you guys tomorrow.
See
See you
ya.
tomorrow.
All right, so we do actually have some people on Twitch, so we're going to raid into another great channel that talks a lot about theory, and that is Non-Compete. So stick with me. We're going to do, those of you who are on Twitch and following, we're going to do a raid right now, and as soon as I can get it going.
I gotta go brush.
That's totally fine. Thank you for being on, Amanda. I always appreciate when you come on.
Dental
It's
health
always a
is
good time.
part of physical health. It's very important.
Absolutely. Yeah, there's not luxury bones.
Yeah.
These are part of your body.
These are bread chewing bones.
That's right.
Speaking bones.
So yeah, so here's Non-Compete. Go check them out, and the raid is going to start right now.
Bye-bye.
I dig whatever. What is this that Brett Crochets just popped up there? It looks like pieces of bread wearing sweaters, and it's really cute.
Oh, his channel is so cool. He has got one camera that's focused on his crochet thing that he's doing, and it's always something leftist. You know, it's like a hammer and sickle or, you know, something like that. And then he just listens to audiobooks in the background and talks about them. It's like a really fun time.
That's fucking dope. I need to get on